Welcome back to another FPL deadline stream, this time at a Blank Gameweek 31. We still have over 1 hour and 40 minutes remaining until we can lock our teams in fully. And I talked about possibly free hitting in 31 several months ago, but I have been quite consistent for a while now that Blank Gameweek 34 for me is a better time to deploy the free hit chip, especially if you're planning to use the wildcard and bench boost around 32 and 33, which is my current plan. Even the triple captain could be utilized instead of the bench boost in 33. That's the only interchangeable thing at the moment, but I'm quite set on wildcarding fairly soon, and 32 seems very likely. In my situation, I've got 10 players available, technically 11 if you also count Martin Dubravka, but in order to field a full starting 11, I need to sell one of Semenyo, Rice, Gabriel, and Mark Guéhi, and right now the plan is to sell one City asset to either Anthony Gordon or Chow. I put a poll out on my channel and you're going to see the results very soon. Even rolling is an option, and having as many free transfers as possible can still be very useful even if you have the wildcard in your back pocket. But I'm planning to have a full 11 for Blank Gameweek 31, and a Newcastle player could be bought in despite their 7-2 loss against Barcelona earlier this week. So at the moment I've got Robert Sanchez in goal, facing Everton away. Two United players in Dallo and Bruno Fernandes, who is my captain, up against Bournemouth away. Two Liverpool players as well in Van Dijk and Ekitike. That's another away fixture against Brighton. And I've also got a duo of Fulham, Joachim Andersen and Harry Wilson, who is my vice at the moment, facing Burnley at home. But the rest of my players, except Morgan Rogers, are away. So Joao Pedro is facing Everton away. That's another double up, of course, with Chelsea. Igor Thiago is the only Brentford asset I have facing Leeds away. And Morgan Rogers is in terrible form at the moment, but there is no need for me to sell him right now against West Ham at home. He scored a brace against them last time out. Dubravka, who is on my bench, is facing Fulham away, and the rest, of course, are blanking. So Arsenal, Man City, Crystal Palace and Wolves will not feature in Gameweek 31, and we'll have more clarity on the upcoming doubles in 33 and 36, as well as Blank Gameweek 34 over the next couple of weeks. But we do have an international break after this, so yep, you might be thinking, what am I going to do for the next couple of weeks? Well, I'm still going to put some FPL and use your fantasy content for you, so keep your eyes peeled for that. The quarterfinals look very interesting, of course, for the Champions League, and we still have plenty more to cover in Fantasy Premier League with all those doubles and blanks in the process. Drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We are closing in on new goals like 39k on YouTube when it comes to subscribers, and also share this with those that love FPL and UCL Fantasy, which I'll cover until the end of the season. And if you want to see World Cup content, I was going to say Club World Cup, I already covered that last season, then be sure to let me know as well and leave your thoughts in the live chat. I'll be answering all your questions now, and later on I'll show you some different graphics. That includes my predicted score lines and also starting 11s for every single team that features this week. Welcome Bareth, good to see you. No easy, just because I've got the best free hit team in the title, it doesn't mean I'm using the free hit chip. It's just because a lot of people have been asking about a best free hit squad, because that's another alternative strategy. So I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of the free hit this week, but I will build a squad specifically designed for Blank Gameweek 31 later on. 12 PM here, final nightmare before 2-week break. Depends how you see it. I'd recommend being a bit more positive than that. Premier League, yeah, FPL has been a bit of a madness recently, but you got to be positive and try to manifest that into some points and green arrows. Bareth says, I have 2 free transfers. I need to use them to get a full 11. I have 2 options. 1, Timber, Rice to Gordon and any defender, or Semenyo, Rice to Rogers. I'd stick with number 1 at the moment. I mean, Rogers is still in my top 10 captaincy list, just like Anthony Gordon. I think Gordon is slightly ahead, but there's no denying that Rogers has been better in the Premier League this season, but in this calendar year, we haven't really seen much from Rogers and Aston Villa, to be fair. But from what you've said, probably number 1. Sam says, Gameweek 31 team, Dubravka, Sanchez, Hill, Rodon, Virgil, Dewsbury Hall, Palmer, Wilson, Bruno Fernandes, Ekitike, Thiago, Pedro, Guéhi, Gabriel, Semenyo, blanking. Am I in trouble about or ahead of Gameweek 33? No wildcard and only 1 free transfer. You're going to need to navigate the next couple of weeks very well, and that's the problem, of course, because in Gameweek 33, for example, the main issue you're going to find is Blank Gameweek 34. So that's going to be the biggest test, and that's why my recommendation to most people is to wildcard fairly soon, either bench boost or triple captain in double Gameweek 33, and free hit in Blank Gameweek 34. But in your situation, I think a few hits might be necessary, but I wouldn't say you're in absolute trouble. But at least for Gameweek 31, you have a decent foundation, but the main issue for you is going to be 33 and 34, as discussed earlier. What should I do when it comes to strategy, and should I make any moves in Gameweek 31? Well, you say you have no wildcard, but you haven't mentioned the other chips. I'm assuming you've got them in your back pocket, but I think free hit in Blank Gameweek 34 would definitely be on the cards for you, and you can still have plenty of doublers for 33. Now, that's based on the projections. A few things could change, but I think free hit 34 definitely makes a lot of sense for you, and you can use the triple captain or bench boost either in 33 or 36 maybe. It just depends on the sequence and how things line up for your squad, but yeah, at the moment we don't have full clarity on that situation, but yeah, I think what you have to do is take it on a weekly basis, and for 31, for example, it might even be a case of just sticking with what you have and not making any transfers, so rolling as much as possible. So once you get to 33, you're in a good position there to really optimize every single week coming up. With no wildcard left, is it a bad idea transferring City players out if they double in 33? Well, because you don't have the wildcard in your back pocket, that could be a bit of a challenge. You might want those City players for 33, but let's not forget their double would include Arsenal at home, so it's not going to be the best on paper for City, so I still wouldn't be completely against selling them. Just be mindful that the players you're bringing in who could do well this week or in 32, you'd want them to also likely double in 33, but nothing is guaranteed right now, so you're in an awkward position at the moment because of the no wildcard. But at least you've got the other chips at your disposal, and I think the free hit will definitely help you in 34 for sure. Should I use 2 free transfers? You got 3 available. So Chow to Richards, Rice to Gordon, Haaland to Joao Pedro. I'm guessing it's the other way around, by the way. You wouldn't be selling Chow for Richards this week. But yeah, overall, I like the look of those moves. I've been saying this a lot to people recently. If you have 3 or 4 transfers, and in some cases 5, you don't need to use all of them up. Now, for Blank Gameweek 31, you've got Dubravka, Rodon, Van Dijk, Joachim Andersen, Bruno Fernandes, Wilson, Elliot Anderson, Rodgers, Ekitike, Thiago. So as long as you get to a full 11, that's all you need. So yeah, for you, you've got Haaland missing, Raya. That's fair enough. Gabriel, Rice. Yeah, you don't need to use all 3 transfers in my opinion. Maybe just, yeah, 2 of them. I think, yeah, use 2. TB says, hey Dylan, my team right now is Dubravka, Van Dijk, Alderete, Bruno, Rice, Dewsbury Hall, Wilson, Ekitike, Krupi. I have 2 transfers undecided between Chow, Anderson and Thiago, Joao Pedro to complete the 11. A slight preference for Joao Pedro. I think Thiago just hasn't really hit the heights of the first half of the season. I know in January he scored 5 goals in 2 games, including a hat-trick against Everton, who he plays in 32. But I think in recent weeks we're seeing a goal, then a blank, goal, blank, and before that we're seeing a lot of blanks from the Brentford talisman. So yeah, Joao Pedro for me. And in that defence, it's difficult. I think Newcastle are more likely to keep a clean sheet this week, but the clean sheet odds would contradict that. And maybe that's what you should be relying on instead of my word for it. But you're going to see my scoreline prediction soon and the updated clean sheet odds. But I would say Chow and Joao Pedro. I also have Estev on the bench. Should I start him or Alderete? I think Newcastle Sunderland could be quite cagey, but I would back the home side to win. And with Burnley, I think that could be quite high scoring. I think Fulham will win and at least score a couple of goals in the process. But yeah, Sunderland have been in poor form, so they have dropped to 13th in the Premier League table. The thing is with Burnley, they kept the clean sheet last time out, but they really should have conceded against Bournemouth. But probably a slight preference for Alderete there. It's a close one. It is a close one. I don't think either will return. We're probably looking at between 0 to 2 points for both of them, unless they get DEFCON. Watkins or Bruno Fernandes captain? I just wouldn't entertain Watkins captain at this point. Rodgers, maybe. We've seen something this season, but with Watkins, look, if you have a good feeling about him, back your gut. But I think Watkins has had a very poor campaign, so has to be Bruno for me. There's no best free hit team video, Twan. I mean, I did a triple upload yesterday, and like I said, the plan is to cover the best free hit squad in today's stream. So yeah, just wait a little bit for that, and you're going to see my sort of take on that, but I'm not a big fan of the free hit, to be fair. Not this week. Start Mukiele or sell for a -4? Start Mukiele. Ahmed says, hi Dylan, my team is Raya, Verbruggen, Gabriel, Munoz, Gehi, Goodmanson, Mukiele, Rogers, Semenyo, Tavernier, Wilson, Bruno Fernandes, Thiago, Raul Jimenez and Haaland. One sub, 1.2 million. Your advice? So you got Verbruggen this week in goal. Yeah, defensively you're down to the bare bones. I would make a defender transfer. Either selling Munoz or Mark Gehi. I'd be inclined to sell Munoz at the moment. You could go to Van Dijk. Yeah, probably do that. No need for a hit, in my opinion. Julian, good to see you. Hope all's good. Hope. Who did you end up captaining on Wednesday? No, I didn't captain anyone on Wednesday. I stuck with Gabriel, but I still got over 130 points. But yeah, a bit disappointed still because I sold Harry Kane, lost out on a few points, and I would want Harry Kane for the next round and a few things like that. But I wish I had that sort of output. Every single play my 11 returned. I've gotten over 100 points in UCL Fantasy like 4 or 5 times this season. So yeah, I just want to carry that over to the Premier League if possible, to be honest with you. For this week, I have Mukiele. If he doesn't play, I have 10 players. Reluctant to take a hit as nothing tempts me. What do you think? I'd stick with the 10 players, to be fair. Not many defenders are worth the hit this week. And players like Gabriel, I think, are worth hits in general, but he's not playing this week. So I'm looking at the list of defenders and nothing really appeals to me. So yeah, I'm not free hitting this week. Just don't really see the appeal. Hi Dylan, I want to bring in Gordon. Which one of the two should I sell? Dewsbury Hall or Dango? Dewsbury Hall facing his former club. Dango's very hit or miss. I think Dewsbury Hall is a better FPL asset, so I'd rather sell Dango Ouattara. It's a bit awkward because Leeds away looks slightly more appealing on paper than Chelsea at home, but I'd rather keep Dewsbury Hall long term. Good morning, Lager. I haven't been able to plan anything yet, but I have 6 non-playing players. Not planned anything yet, so I'll decide on the go this evening. Free hit seems most obvious, but I could see potential with wildcard also. Yeah, in your situation, if you have that many players missing out, a free hit could definitely bail you out. But yeah, in my case, for example, I've got, well, as you can see, 4 Arsenal Man City players combined because I sold Haaland last week. But yeah, if you've got 6+ non-playing players, that's where a free hit could definitely help you out. I think the wildcard's quite awkward this week, so I'd rather use the free hit in your situation. Thank you very much, Banjo. Good to see you. And yeah, all the tunes are by my cousin, Laudaro, so have a look at that. Gordon or Szoboszlai? Gordon. Thank you, Haribo, for the super chat. I only have 2 free transfers. Sorry. Jesus Christ. I only have the free hit and bench boost, 0 transfers left, and I need to take a hit to field an 11. My plan was always to get Wilson. Without a wild card left, Gordon is smarter. Yeah, I prefer Wilson for this week, but Gordon could double in 33. It's Crystal Palace away in 32, which isn't great, but it's not a bad fixture per se. Meanwhile, Wilson faces his former club Liverpool away in 32. I'll be honest with you, I still think Wilson is a better FPL asset from now until the end of the season, but Fulham have a few tough fixtures coming up, like Brentford away as well, in 34, and or I should say in 33, whilst Gordon could double. So, difficult one there, but I still think Wilson is probably the preference, to be fair. Gordon hasn't been great in the Premier League this season. The reason why I'm looking to buy him in is because over the past 2 games he has scored against Chelsea and Manchester United, and it's Sunderland next. I think he could score in this game, but beyond that fixture, yeah, I'm not that fussed about Gordon. The double in 33 is decent, of course, on paper, but that's if it ends up happening. And I think Wilson is a better FPL asset, and he offers superior value. Thank you to Danny. Buy Thiago for Haaland or start Krupi van den Berg. I think there's a chance Krupi's benched here. And as for Van den Berg, I'm expecting Leeds to score at Ellen Road, so I'd be tempted to buy Thiago in your case. And if it doesn't work out against Leeds, I still think Thiago's a solid long-term pickup. The only concern about that is you might want Haaland back fairly soon. I have 0 Newcastle and 0 Fulham assets. Buy defender from which team? This might be unpopular, but I think Newcastle have a better chance of a clean sheet. I've gone for 1, maybe 2-0 in the scoreline prediction. You're going to see it very soon. For Fulham Burnley, I've gone for 3-2 Fulham. I've captained the wrong player every week this season. It's killed me. Well, based on recent form, I think Fernandes is a very safe bet, but yeah, I can understand the frustrations when you can't really get the captaincy right because that's a big part of the game. Chow, Hall, or Livramento? Chow. It was covered in my transcripts video earlier this week, in fact yesterday, in the triple upload. Gordon or Wilson for Rice? I prefer Wilson. I know Gordon could double in 33. Wilson has poor fixtures after Burnley at home, but I think Wilson outscores him this week. I'm probably going to have both, by the way, but if I didn't have Wilson, I'd probably buy him in. Gordon's not showing up, son. Big six teams, yes, could get sent off, but Sunderland's a big game. And Gordon did get sent off against Liverpool earlier this season, but we all know what Gordon can do. Yeah, he hasn't been a good FPL asset this season on the whole, but I'm backing him for this fixture and possibly in 33 if Newcastle were to double. Hi Dylan, I only have 10 players to play. Wonder about transferring out Rice or Haaland. If it's for free, I would say yes. I'd be more inclined to sell Haaland. At the moment, he's just not really worth that price tag, but we know the quality of the player, and if he gets going again, he could be a great triple captaincy option in 33 or 36, depending on when Man City get that double. This will be so long, 2 weeks, oh my goodness, what the heck will we be doing? Relaxing, disconnecting a little bit, and yeah, we've had deadlines left, right, and centre for UCL Fantasy and FPL. I think a little break won't go amiss, but then again, I'm speaking from a different perspective, making content all the time, and I'll still be making some videos, of course, but a bit more spaced out for you. But yeah, trust me, there's a lot more to Premier League football and all this stuff. You'll find something. Bruno or Wilson captain? Bruno. It was covered in my team selection yesterday. You're going to see my top 10 list later on, which is updated with the news that Salah is missing out. So if you do have the Egyptian, my recommendation is to sell. Wilson is second, though, in that captaincy list, and you can also see in, well, on screen, I've got Wilson vice and Bruno captain, which is quite self-explanatory. The differential when it comes to captains, I'm thinking of Joao Pedro. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the EO is going to be, the effective ownership, but yeah, Joao Pedro could be a shout. He is template overall, but when it comes to the captaincy, that could be a decent differential. Yeah, best Newcastle defenders, Chow. I wouldn't really consider anybody else. I don't think Lewis Hall offers DEFCON or bonus points really to the level you want, and the assist threat will be there. We saw a good assist against Barcelona the other day, but I don't think Lewis Hall really stacks up to Chow, who can get DEFCON. He's got 4 goals, 9 big chances in the Premier League this season, and plenty of bonus points in DEFCON in general. So, yeah, Chow is the one. Yeah, free hit for me, not really the best play for 31 unless you're missing a lot of players, but it is team dependent. I'm speaking from my perspective where I think I can just get to 11 very easily, 1 free transfer. Even sticking with 10 is probably my preference over free hitting. Joao Pedro, Bowen, or Raul Jimenez? Joao Pedro. It's worth mentioning Bowen's consistency, but Joao Pedro's the best one. Thank you, Harrison James. Big ups, Dylan. Hope you're well. Coming off a big 122 in UCL Fantasy, getting back up to the top 5.5k overall. My one conundrum, start Mavropanos or Hill? Yeah, a lot of high scores in UCL Fantasy. Everyone I've spoken to got over 100 points, so it was a week to score big. With FPL, start Mavropanos or Hill? Yeah, I can see that. Hill was the better FPL asset, but yeah, difficult one. I think West Ham and Bournemouth will concede. Villa have been off the boil recently, but I think they'll win against West Ham. I'm going to go for Hill in this case, but not expecting much from any of them. Is Lefay available? I'm not sure. He is yellow flagged. He's currently in my predicted lineup, but there's no guarantee there. Would he do Dango to Wilson? Yes. The captaincy conversation has been talked about quite a few times, basically in the last couple of minutes since you probably asked this question, but you will see my top 10 list very soon. For me, Fernandes is the best option. He's the only reliable premium right now, someone who delivers on a consistent basis. I know Bournemouth are on a decent unbeaten streak in 10 matches, but I think United could score a couple of goals, and Fernandes will be crucial to that. So, yeah, he is the one for me. Xavi Simons or Elliot Anderson? I still prefer Elliot Anderson. Xavi Simons played very well against Atleti, though, and if he can play in that attacking midfield role more often, then yeah, we could see the best out of him. And Spurs have looked better in the last 2 matches. So Sam says, thinking I'm going to do Dewsbury Hall to Gordon or Gahey, Rodon, Hill to Chow since Newcastle likely double. In that case, I have a better lineup in 31 and preparing for 33. Yeah, looks good to me. I do like Dewsbury Hall, but Gordon looks more appealing this week and he could double in 33. It isn't guaranteed, but as you mentioned, Newcastle will likely double, which is why both of them, Chow and Gordon, are at the top of my agenda. In terms of which defender to sell, well, Gahey could double in 33 as well, but blank in 34 simultaneously, and it is Chelsea away in 32. And of course, Arsenal isn't a great fixture to form part of that double in 33 for Man City, but I think in your case, I'd rather sell Rodon and keep Hill and Gahey. I would captain Bruno Fernandes over Gordon. The free hit will be used in 34. I've been very consistent on that in this stream, in all my videos. My current plan, which is still subject to change, is the wildcard in 32, either bench boost or triple captain in 33. The other will be used in 36, and the free hit will be deployed in Blank Gameweek 34. Start Van Dijk or Joao Pedro? Joao Pedro. Ideally, I'd start both, but that goes to show you've got decent squad depth for the week. Captaincy differential. Maybe Harry Wilson to a certain extent. I'm not sure what the effective ownership will be, but for example, Joao Pedro has double the ownership of Harry Wilson, and I think Wilson's EO could be slightly lower, actually, so he'd be the one. Hi, Dylan. Week 30, if only I got 10 points for Bruno captain. Do you know if they had issues this week? Thanks. I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you captain Bruno Fernandes, you should get 20 points, not just the 10, if that's what you're referring to. Yeah, just make sure, because you've also got the vice captaincy. Maybe there's a chance you vice captain Bruno. I'm not sure what the situation is there. Many of my players are facing each other. That's a problem with Gameweek 31. In the best wildcard squad I discussed, I had a few clashes in the starting 11, which is far from ideal. And as you mentioned there, a few of them, it's not particularly great on paper, but the hope is that at least one of those players return, of course. But having both of them is probably unlikely. But they are good FPL assets in isolation, with the exception of Rodon and Sanchez at the moment. Bench 1, Dewsbury Hall, Alderete or Hill? I'd bench Alderete, I think, from those three. Dewsbury Hall could still get a goal against Chelsea or an assist. Drop a like if you haven't already, by the way. What I'm going to do, taking a little break from the questions, and we still have over an hour left, of course, to go through more conundrums and individual situations. I'm going to answer some generic questions, basically, by going through the FDR, the top 10 captains, the clean sheet odds. So that's going to help you massively. So subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and also subscribe and all that stuff. Share. You know the drill by now. And thanks to those that are watching on the playback too. First and foremost, let's take a look at the FDR. So Man City are top until 36. But it's worth bearing in mind they're not going to double in 35 and 36, but they will likely double in 33, and in one of those weeks I just mentioned, probably 36, but that remains to be seen. Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Liverpool and Leeds are in the top 5, and those near the bottom include Wolves, Manchester United, Fulham, Brentford and Sunderland. The likes of Arsenal and Chelsea are also in the bottom 7. With predicted points until Gameweek 36, Haaland is top. Fernandes, Palmer, Thiago and Joao Pedro make up the top 5, with Mbumo, Ekitike, Gordon, Anderson and Calvert-Lewin in the top 10. What I'm going to do actually is see what Fantasy Football Hub are recommending in terms of my transfers and also the starting 11. Is that even a thing, really? Well, no, because I have no benching dilemmas this week except for Dubravka against Sanchez. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Would you pick the Chelsea shot stopper? Because that cost me 3 points last week. They both have the exact same predicted points here at 3.3. They recommend captaining Wilson now, and his expected points has risen up dramatically. I think it was around 3.8 when I did the team selection video yesterday. Let's now go to their recommended transfer, which could even be rolling. But Gordon is definitely a priority in the midfield, and Chow in the defence. So they recommend 2 defender transfers, 2 moves. That would be for a -4 hit, though, and I don't see a need to do Dallo to Chow, to be honest. So, yeah, I think Semenyo to Gordon, that's pretty much the most likely transfer, which I talked about in my team selection yesterday in that triple upload, and I think that is a very sensible shout. With predicted price changes, Lewis Hall, Ekitike, Wilson, Van Heck, and Vandenberg could all rise tonight, whilst Armstrong, Mateus Nunes, Chuana, and O'Reilly could all drop in price. And this is a poll I put out on my channel, and it refers to some of those transfer plans. The top vote goes to Gehi, to Malik Chow. Antoine Semenyo to Anthony Gordon is second, and Rolling is last. So the vast majority of you recommend buying in a Newcastle player, and Chow does slightly lead there. I'm guessing selling Antoine Semenyo is probably the main reason why people are against that sort of switch, but my plan is to wildcard in 32 anyway. What I'm going to do right now, though, in this live stream is do a poll, and it's about who to sell. That's going to be the main question. And I'm not going to sell Gabriel, by the way, so he's out of bounds, if you will. So Semenyo, let's put Rice and Mark Gay. Let's see what you lot think. And I think we've got another super chat in the building. So thank you to Haribo. With no wildcard left, is a free hit in 31 viable? Yeah, if you've got multiple players out, we're talking about 6+, then the free hit can definitely bail you out in this situation. The problem with that is, if you also want to optimize your team for double Game Week 33, you're going to have a really big issue navigating that period with Blank Gameweek 34, because a lot of the teams that blank in 34 will double in the previous game week. So that's going to be a very difficult balance to strike. But yeah, in certain situations, I can see the free hit being useful to some people. And when I get to FPL.team fairly soon, I will try to build a best free hit squad for 31. But for example, I don't see many clean sheets flying around this week. And even with Newcastle, for example, I've gone for a clean sheet there. I'm not fully convinced. So do I go for a Ramsdale there as the suggested goalkeeper? Well, possibly. I want to also link that free hit team to my scoreline predictions. So that will be done in due course, and that could also help you with your final decision. But in many situations, I still think the free hit in 34 is more appealing, and it just helps you navigate that period more seamlessly. So next up are some injury updates. So Arne Slot says Salah will not be available for the game against Brighton, and he will not join Egypt during the international break. David Moyes said that Branthwaite and James Tarkowski are both hopefully in and around the squad for the Chelsea game. And I did a stats comparison, where I've got it set up for you, between Anthony Gordon and Mbeumo. This could be another good transfer for you, by the way, if you aren't selling the Arsenal and Man City players we've got. In some cases, Crystal Palace or Wolves, of course, who are blanking in 31. But I think Mbeumo's been off the boil recently. It wouldn't surprise me if he was benched against Bournemouth, and we saw Amad Diallo on the right and Benjamin Sesko up front. But I currently do have Mbeumo in my predicted 11. But Anthony Gordon is showing good form in the Premier League with back-to-back hauls against Chelsea and Manchester United. So if we look at the individual stats, Mbeumo is still comfortably ahead with 12 goal contributions this season and 9 goals in general, but he has tailed off since October with 59 shots, which is more than Gordon's. But I think in terms of, well, to be fair, in every single stat, Mbeumo is better, if not identical, like the big chances created. But I think Mbeumo does have the better underlying numbers, except for the XG, of course. Gordon has underperformed there. Having said that, it's still very close between the two of them, and Mbeumo has played as a striker in multiple matches for Man United this season, particularly under Michael Carrick. But I just don't really think Mbeumo's been offering that captaincy option that we saw towards the beginning of the season. And there was a debate at one point that he was better than Bruno Fernandes, but now that's no longer the case. But let's not forget, Fernandes did start this season a bit poorly, which is why, for me, he's not the Premier League Player of the Year, but we can discuss that as well later in the stream. Let's go to the best wildcard squad. Kind of rough, of course, and there are some problems in here, but Dubravka and Raya would be the goalkeepers. Hill, Van Dijk and Chow in that defensive line. Van Heck is another option for you against Liverpool at home. Of course, Gabriel and Semenyo are blanking this week, but Bruno Fernandes, Elliot Anderson, Palmer and Wilson look solid, with Joao Pedro, Thiago and Ekitike up front. You could even go for Bowen there in the forward line if you're struggling for funds like I am, and that can help you reinvigorate your midfield in the process. And for Game Week 32, you'd have this sort of structure. I talked about this in detail in the team selection, so be sure to check that out. And for double Game Week 33, if we do get these projected doubles take place, it could look quite promising, actually. And you could make a few moves there, like bring in Bowen for Ekitike and then buy Declan Rice in the midfield for Harry Wilson by the time we get to double game week 33. I do discuss some moves like that in that particular podcast. In terms of my squad, by getting Gordon in now, this would be my starting 11 for Blank Gameweek 31. And for 32, I could start Wilson over Gordon, but I do have some good squad depth there. I'll be honest with you though, I think the wildcard would likely be deployed during the international break. And for Gameweek 33, I still have quite a few doublers here if the projections end up ringing true. With Sanchez, Guehi, Gabriel, Rice, Gordon, João Pedro, and Dubravka, that would be 7, but I could easily get to 10 plus with the wildcard chip and free hit in Blank Gameweek 34. With FPL Challenge, this is my current setup with Kelleher away to Leeds. That's something I'm looking to change potentially. Malik Chow facing Sunderland at home. Bruno Fernandes as the captain, and I'm definitely going to stick with him in FPL Challenge because this week it is called Creativity. You get +6 points awarded for players who create 3 or more chances. Morgan, Rogers and Wilson complete the 3 midfielders. João Pedro is my solitary striker, and I think that's all I need when it comes to that. So I did cover these graphics in yesterday's team selection, but what I want to do is highlight a few changes, mainly to the prices we saw overnight. Quite a lot of activity happening there. For example, Joachim Andersen now costs 4.6 million. Over the last couple of days as well, Mark Guehi went down to 5.1 million. And I think Van Dijk was another one who rose in price to 6.3. But Declan Rice and Semenyo both went down. You're going to see that in the next section. And that was my review and performance for Gameweek 30, of course. Not particularly great. A lot of blanks there. And I also took a -4 hit to sell Erling Haaland and Mane for João Pedro and Ekitike. So the other sort of price changes to look out for, yeah, Declan Rice is now 7.3 million. Semenyo went down to 8.2. Van Dijk is now 6.3 million, making him the 3rd most expensive defender in the game. And as mentioned earlier, Guehi is 5.1 million. One of the players I was looking to bring in to replace Mark Guehi potentially is now the exact same price tag as him. So Malik Chow went up in price around 2-3 days ago, and that could be a great replacement. And Anthony Gordon could be a solid short-term move to displace Antoine Semenyo, but I still think the Ghanaian has a lot to offer, especially if City double in 33. So this is the provisional team selection for Gameweek 31, and I talked about some alternatives, of course, but the most likely move is to bring in Gordon for Antoine Semenyo, and I did put a poll out on the live chat right now, and there is definitely a case to sell Rice instead of Antoine Semenyo, but I would have 2 Man United, 2 Chelsea, 2 Fulham, and 2 Liverpool this week. And I'd also have, well, a few solitary options there. So Rogers for Aston Villa, Thiago for Brentford there. And then the rest, of course, are on my bench, blanking. And Dubravka is away to Fulham, but I think Sanchez is the slight preference. And you saw recommended captain, but my current plan is to stick with Bruno Fernandes, and Wilson is my vice. I think with other captaincy shouts, that would include João Pedro. You're going to see that very soon, actually, in the next section. Hopefully this works, but yeah, I think right now I'm experiencing a bit of delay. But yeah, hopefully things do get back to normal. So yeah, bear with me for a second. Okay, so yeah, I wasn't even able to see the scoreline predictions and stuff. It literally all went blank. But you can see all this playing out on screen. I'll read out my scoreline predictions later. Yeah. So yeah, there's a massive delay at the moment, so there might be some audio or visual issues, but that should clear up fairly soon. But yeah, that's just an internet issue. So Fulham are top, facing Burnley at home with a 45% probability of keeping a clean sheet. These stats are all taken by the website fantasyfootballpundit.com. Newcastle are second with a 42% chance in their local derby. Aston Villa, Chelsea, Leeds and Tottenham Hotspur complete the top 6, and Burnley are last, down in 16th, facing Fulham away, but their chances have increased slightly to 17%. Let's now go to the top 10 captains. This is a very eagerly anticipated section, it seems. I have put Bruno Fernandes in top spot. Harry Wilson is a close second, and I wouldn't mind a cheeky captaincy punt on him. His home record is quite solid at Craven Cottage, so I definitely wouldn't discourage you from going for a differential captain in Wilson. João Pedro makes up the podium with Palmer and Thiago in the top 5. Gordon, Mbumo, Rogers, Ekitike, and Gibbs-White are in the top 10. I previously had Salah in there, but he is unavailable to face Brighton, and he will be out for the next couple of weeks. But we do have an international break, of course, after Blank Gameweek 31. Let me go back to the scoreline predictions, and I'll read them out, actually, since I wasn't able to do that earlier. You obviously saw my highlight player in Bruno Fernandes, but Bournemouth 1, Man United 2, Brighton 2, Liverpool 2, Fulham 3, Burnley 2, Everton 1, Chelsea 2, Leeds 1, Brentford 1, Newcastle 2, Sunderland 0, Aston Villa 3, West Ham 1, and Tottenham Hotspur 1, Nottingham Forest 1 are my scoreline predictions. Now, I am going to go through my predicted lineup soon. Vicario is out, it looks like. I think he's going to undergo surgery, so Kinski could be in goal there against Nottingham Forest. So, look, maybe a few of these scorelines need to be adjusted a little bit, but that's what I've currently gone for. And I'll probably stick with them for now, but they might be worth revisiting fairly soon. Yeah, let's go now to the predicted lineups. I think that's the best place to go now. And it will be a bit shorter than usual because we only have 16 teams featuring in Blank Gameweek 31. We'll start off with Aston Villa, going through in alphabetical order. Emi Martinez, Matty Cash, Konsa, Mings, and Luca Dean is my predicted backline for the Villains, with Onana and Barkley in central midfield, McGinn and Buendia as the wingers, and Rogers just behind Ollie Watkins. Villa certainly need both of them to perform against West Ham. Up next is Bournemouth. I'm very unsure about Krupi Jr.'s minutes, and we could see something a bit different, like Smith at right back and Jimenez playing further forward. That could push Ray into the left and Tavernier into a central attacking midfield role, but I've currently got Petrovic, Jimenez and Truffer as the fullbacks, Hill and Senesi in central defence, Scott and Christie in the midfield, with Rayan, Krupi Jr., Tavernier and Evanescence to face Manchester United. Next up is Brentford, another 4-2-3-1 formation with Kelleher, Coyote, Vandenberg, Collins and Lewis Potter, Henderson and Yarmoliuk in the midfield, with Jensen a bit further forward, Dango Ouattara and Shard on the wings, and Igor Thiago, who has 19 Premier League goals. With Brighton, I've gone for Verbruggen, Vifa, Van Heck, Dunk, and Kadioglu, Milner and Gross as the midfield pivot, with Hinshelwood also in that setup, Gomez and also Minter on the wings, with Danny Welbeck leading the line. We're now on to Burnley, who could play a 4-2-3-1 again, with Dubravka, Walker, Humphreys, Esteve, and Hartman, Lauren and Ward-Prowse in the midfield, with Hannibal Mjebri, and then Edwards, Anthony, and Fleming as the three attackers. With Chelsea, there are several doubts here, but Robert Sanchez is in goal, and Malo Gusto is currently doubtful due to an injury problem. Fofana and Hato should be the central defensive partnership, with Chalobah out for this game. The same goes for Reece James, of course, and that's going to be two massive blows there for the Blues. Cucurella as the left back. I've gone for Enzo and Caicedo in a deeper area, with Palmer, Neto, who is back from suspension, Garnacho, and João Pedro as the four attackers. Everton have one doubtful player in this predicted lineup in Tarkowski. Branthwaite is also yellow flagged, but Pickford, O'Brien, Tarkowski, Keane, and Mikalenko all make it, with Idrissa Gana Gueye and Ghana, McNeil, Dewsbury Hall, Indai, and Beto for the Toffees. Moving on to Fulham, Leno, Tete, Anderson, Bassi and Robinson, Sandenberg and Iwobi, Harry Wilson, King, Samuel Chukwueze, and Raul Jimenez to face Burnley at home. With Leeds United, Darlow, Bogle, Rodon, Biol, Strauch and Justin, Stack, Ampadu, Gruev, Aronson, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The Premier League champions will likely go for Alisson, Frimpong, Kanate, Virgil van Dijk, Kirkes, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Gakpo, and Hugo Ekitike, with Salah missing out. There could be a surprising twist to Man United's starting 11, which could see Bryan Mbeumo or Sesko make way, and that would mean Amad Diallo on the right-hand side. But I've gone for Lamens, Dalot, Maguire, Yoro, Anshaw, Casemiro and Mainu in the midfield, Mbeumo, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, and Benjamin Sesko, who is in fine form at the moment. We're on to Newcastle next, with Ramsdale, Livramento, Chow, Byrne, and Lewis Hall, Tonali is doubtful, but I think he'll start with Joelinton, Elanga, who scored a brace against Barcelona, Ramsey, Harvey Barnes, and Anthony Gordon up front. We only have a few teams left here, including Nottingham Forest, who won on penalties in the Europa League. Sells, Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, Anne Williams, Sangari, Anderson, Hutchinson, Gibbs-White, Ndoye to replace the potentially injured Hudson-Odoi, and Igor Jesus to lead the line. Tottenham Hotspur went for a back four recently in a 3-2 win against Atleti, so I think Kinski will start in goal with Pedro Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, and Udogie, Pape Sarr and Gray in the midfield with Xavi Simons, I'm getting them mixed up here, and Colomwani, Tell, and Richarlison. I think that will be the predicted 11 against Nottingham Forest at home. That could be a crucial game in the relegation battle. And with Sunderland, I've gone for Elborg, Hume, Ballard, Alderete, and Reinildo Mandava, who returns from injury. Siddiqui, Xhaka, Talbi, Diarra. Lefay is not guaranteed to start here in this derby, with Brobby as the sole striker. The last team is West Ham United with Hermanson, Todibo, Mavropanos and Disasi, Wan-Bissaka and Diouf as the wingbacks. Soucek, Fernandez, Bowen, Pablo and Tati Castellanos would complete the predicted 11 for West Ham and for every single Premier League team this week. So this is now my own starting 11 for FPL. I've only got 10 players at the moment, but I am looking at using my only free transfer to either get Chow for Mark Gahey or to sell Semenyo for Anthony Gordon. So we do have just over an hour left, and hopefully all this information helped you. If that was the case, drop a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share, all that good stuff. There's also the hype button on the YouTube app. Xavi or Rodgers this week? Rodgers. Yeah, I think Ekitike will play. You just saw my predicted lineups. I will go for the best free hit team soon. So Fabrizio's reporting that Alisson has another injury and is out. Thanks for that. That could be another modification to the predicted lineups. Just having a look to confirm. Yeah, I just saw it. All right, thanks for that. I'm going to make a alteration there. So I'm going to have that ready. I'm not going to read all of them again later on, but if possible, I'll show the predicted lineups one more time with these last changes. But yeah, that information just came through. So Alisson is out for Liverpool. Another injury there for the Brazilian. Okay, so that's updated already. Thank you very much, GeoBoys, for pointing that out. So yeah, unfortunately, things are being slowed down a little bit by the internet, so bear with me for a second. But yeah, I'm going to go back to your questions and probably whiz through them just so we can cover as much as possible. Yep, the free hit will be covered soon. I would bring in a Newcastle player or two, so I think Gordon would make it. Possibly Rodgers, dare I say. I would go for... I think Ekitike would be the one. So let's go to that now. I think that's going to be one of the main questions, of course, and it's in the title. I'm going to cover that in this section here. So I'll leave the goalkeepers for now because I'm not a big fan of them. I think Joao Pedro, Thiago, Ekitike would be absolutely fine. Harry Wilson would definitely be in the team. Same with Bruno Fernandes, so that speaks for itself. I think Anderson could also make it, even though I personally think Burnley could score a goal or two. But I think it makes sense on paper. Dubravka's the backup is absolutely reasonable. It doesn't really matter anyway. In terms of a starting goalkeeper, I might go for Ramsdale, but we could also have Chow in this position. And then Gordon. 2.9 in the bank. Yeah. It's not looking great. But let's get rid of some of these blankers. So let's go to Anderson for the time being. I think that could work. Even Hill, just to make up the numbers. And to replace Dallo, I mean, we've got 7.3 in the bank now, which is insane. So we can go for absolutely anybody. Possibly Palmer. That's something I would consider. But then, who do you bench from these options? I mean, that... Yeah, it's a bit of a madness to bench one of these options, but... I would consider benching Ekitike in that case, but that is very risky. As for the vice-captaincy, probably Wilson, which is my current plan. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that attack. I know Rodgers has been off the boil. You could bench him feasibly, but I think he could return against West Ham. My main issue is the defence, and obviously Sanchez in goal. I just don't trust Chelsea defensively. I really don't. So that could be Ramsdale, which is a bit of a madness, by the way. Double Newcastle defence against Sunderland. I mean, anything can happen in a derby, but based on my scoreline predictions, I think it makes sense. It does drop the expected points slightly, though, to 49.6. So yeah, it's worth going back to the scoreline predictions and sort of aligning that with my free hit team. But I'm probably going to stick with Anderson in there because of DEFCON, and I think he's a decent FPL asset overall. You could go for Gibbs White in the midfield against Tottenham. I think Anderson's always solid. I do like Palmer, but then you have to bench one of those attackers. That's my main concern. But I would prefer Palmer over Ekitike personally. I think both games could have a similar amount of goals. I've gone for 2-2 between Liverpool and Brighton, and then 2-1 away win for Chelsea, but I'm not convinced about that. I think Chelsea could drop points again. So yeah, it's not really a week where it stands out to me for the free hit, but I think for some people it will work out if they have a lot of players missing, so it is very circumstantial. So let me know what changes you would make on the free hit, and we can discuss and maybe improve it a little bit. I think that's certainly possible. Yeah, best player this week is either Fernandes or Wilson. That's my top two. Palmer's up there, but away to Everton, considering his form, Chelsea being inconsistent, and I think the Toffees have been quite competitive recently, mainly away from home to be fair, but yeah, it's not going to be an easy game for Chelsea. I'm not saying Wilson's a differential, but to captain him, I think will pay off big time if he does return. So that's definitely worth highlighting. And compared to João Pedro, for example, who has over double the ownership, yeah, Wilson will be more of a differential than him, even with the captaincy in mind. Bassi, not really. I think Anderson's the only Fulham defender you'd want for this week or that you need. As a one-week punt, could you double up on Fulham? Yes, but I'm not really that convinced about a clean sheet. I've gone for 3-2. Yeah, I think Lewis Potter will start. That was covered in the predicted lineups earlier. Sarr, Timber to who and who? Gordon and Chow. Looks pretty good. Hi, Dylan. Can we do Gordon versus Palmer in the poll? All right, I'll look into that. So, most people would sell Declan Rice instead of Antoine Semenyo. I think that's reasonable. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good shout. Not much in it, though. Very balanced poll in general, and thanks to those that did vote. And make sure to vote in the next one. Alright, so let's put Gordon and Palmer in this poll. And what I can do for you as well, to give you even more coverage, is to compare Gordon to Palmer's stats, because I was actually thinking of doing that before highlighting Mbeumo instead. But both of them have massively underperformed this season. I mean, Palmer has 9 goals, so it's not too bad there, I guess, but Palmer's still been quite underwhelming over the course of the campaign. I think Gordon's had decent numbers, but hasn't really lived up to it, especially with the goal scoring. Both of them have 44 shots and 19 on target, which is interesting. Only 1 shot inside the box separates them in Gordon's favour. Yet again, or then again, I should say, Gordon has played more minutes and he has started more matches than Cole Palmer this season. But a lot of their stats are identical. 13 big chances for the Newcastle midfielder and 12 for Cole Palmer. Key passes, Gordon does lead by 7. And he also has almost double the number of big chances created. The XA is also in Gordon's favour, 3.31. The XG would be in Palmer's at 8.7, but still very close and neck. And ultimately, Gordon is much cheaper. But yeah, my current plan is to buy Anthony Gordon, and it might be for Declan Rice. And I'll keep Antoine Semenyo in the process. That's my current plan. That could backfire, of course, but it is what it is. Yeah, I'll do a Captaincy poll later, but I was responding to somebody else who asked for that specific poll. So I'll go into a Captaincy one later. Well, I covered this in my transfer tips, to be honest. So just to kind of sum it up, Chow is much better for DEFCON and bonus points. Lewis Hall is also a bit less secure when it comes to minutes. And look, he's a good player. He got an assist the other day, but I think Chow, who has 4 goals this season and 9 big chances, really good underlying stats for a defender, I think Chow is the better pick. Bowen, Joao Pedro, or Watkins? Which striker would you prefer for Haaland? Joao Pedro. And I'd rank Bowen higher than Watkins. Hi mate, should I do Salah to Gordon for 1 free transfer or just play Evanilson? Evanilson typically does better against the bigger teams, if you will, but I'd probably go for Gordon. Would you do Anderson to Gordon? Not so sure about that, because Anderson could still give you 4 or 5 points minimum against Tottenham, and any attack in return could result in a double-digit haul. But I do prefer Gordon this week, so it just depends on your strategy. If you're wildcarding in 32, I'd probably take the plunge. But long-term, I think Anderson offers better value, so it's a double-edged sword there. Depending on your chip strategy, if you're not looking to reverse this maybe in the future, or if you don't have the wildcard, then I'd probably just keep Anderson. Yeah, it's going to be Bruno for me. You saw my top 10 list literally a few minutes ago. Haaland to Ekitike or Bowen or Joao Pedro for this game week? Joao Pedro. Welcome, Punjabi. I need to replace 2 players for a full 11. Please suggest. I think Munoz stands out as a sell in your team. Yeah, I would sell Munoz. And then I'd keep Gabriel for sure. Probably keep Semenyo. And then possibly sell O'Reilly, actually. The thing is, 2 defender transfers, you could get Gordon. What I would do in your case is probably Munoz to Chow and Gordon in for Semenyo. The only thing is you might want Semenyo back fairly soon. Rice and Haaland out for Gordon and Joao Pedro, or Szoboszlai and Jimenez. Which 2 out of the 4 would you go for? Yeah, it's going to be Gordon and Joao Pedro all day long. Haaland to Ekitike, Bowen, Joao Pedro covered. Try not to spam, please. Hi, Dylan. I have 10 starting players, 4 transfers. Who to transfer out? Haaland to Ekitike, etc. I prefer Joao Pedro and Thiago over Ekitike. And there's a case for Bowen as well. Don't get me wrong, the Frenchman is still decent. I bought him in last week. A bit disappointed by the cameo off the bench against Tottenham, but yeah, I would prefer Joao Pedro. Or Semenyo to Gordon, Szoboszlai. Yeah, probably in this case, I'd sell Haaland. That can always go south. But yeah, I think probably sell Erling Haaland in this case. What's up, Dylan? Going to play my Limitless. Is this for FPL? Sorry, for UCL Fantasy, because you can't play in FPL. But yeah, if you're referring to the free hit, fair enough. I'm not really that fussed about the free hit this week, but I did show a best free hit squad literally just a few minutes ago. I'll leave it on screen for a bit longer since a lot of people are interested, but after that, I'll go back to my team, start making my transfer, and locking things in. Gordon or Ekitike for Gameweek 31 only? Gordon. Haaland to Ekitike or Bowen. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Hey, Dylan, which front three? Thiago, Ekitike, Joao Pedro, or Richarlison? Skip Richarlison, basically. Thank you, John Paul. Happy Friday. Joao Pedro in for Haaland or Gordon for Semenyo? Joao Pedro in for Haaland. Gordon and Rodgers instead of Gordon and Bruno. I'm guessing there's a typo there. But I do prefer the Bruno route. Anything that involves Bruno is going to be my preference. And should I make a defender transfer or do another transfer in attack? I don't know who you've got, so that makes it very difficult to say. So yeah, I'd rather make a forward transfer if you can, but I don't know who you got. That would also swing things a little bit. Long-term goalkeeper to pair Raya. Dubravka's fine, just back up. Probably start him this week and that's it. But if you're willing to spend more money, maybe Kelleher. That could work fairly well, but I think Raya can just be your set and forget for the rest of the season, really. I never like captaining the first game of the week. It's a bit different, though, because Friday night is different to the usual Saturday early kickoff curse, and I'm pretty sure Fernandes beat it earlier this season, actually. Hey, Dylan, wildcard in 32. Would you do Haaland and Semenyo for Gordon and Sesko for a -4? Sesko is in great form, but the minutes are still insecure, and I do prefer Ekitike, and Bowen is in really good form right now. Joao Pedro and Thiago are the standouts for me. So one of those would be above Sesko. I will need your help with replacement for Haaland. My choice is between Joao Pedro, Bowen, or Richarlison. Joao Pedro. Good to see you, Ignacio. 2 options. Option 1, Gay, Sarr, Haaland out for Joao Pedro, Gordon, Chow, -4. Option 2, Gay and Dai Sarr out for Anderson, Gordon, Livramento, -4. The first option, Joao Pedro, Gordon, Chow. Should I do a -4 to replace Dorgu to start with 11 players? If so, who do I replace him with? I have Van Dijk and Rodon. No, stick with 10 players. No voy a usar un chip. Como dije en inglés, el plan es usar el comodín en la jornada 32, el bench boost o triple captain en la jornada 33, el otro sería en la jornada 36, también depende de cuándo vamos a tener los dobles, y el free hit sería en la jornada 34. Joao Pedro or Bowen long term? This is close, but probably Joao Pedro. Yeah, Gordon for me, as covered earlier. Yeah, Mamardashvili will be in goal for Liverpool this week. Why so many when there's no game week? Well, I haven't made my transfer, mate. It's not like I just want Semenyo. He's not there for decoration. The plan is to sell him or Rice to Anthony Gordon. And speaking of which, he is the winner of this poll. But I'm going to leave a captaincy one, I think, for the remainder of the stream. We've got 45 minutes left. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I've gone through so many questions and also different screens, which I'll probably go to one more time, just for those newcomers as well. And always feel free to rewind a little bit and see the different stats I've shown, and then go back to the live section once you're done. So, vote for your Game Week 31 captain. So let's put the options in there. Joao Pedro, Palmer. Yeah, Wilson should be in this conversation. Let's put Bruno Fernandes and Gordon, I guess. He's proven to be very popular at the moment. Yeah, unfortunately I can't put a 5th. But yeah, that will do. Gordon mostly penalties. Yeah, but just like Thiago, right? And penalty takers are always useful to have in FPL. I mean, look at Bruno Fernandes over the years. Rice to Gordon, Anderson, and Chalobah to Anderson or Chow. Wildcard in 32. Yeah. I would go for Gordon and Chow. By the way, you did confuse me a little bit because you put Joachim Anderson in the midfield section and Elliot Anderson, the way it's spelled, in the defensive section. But yeah, nightmare if Newcastle play a blank and somehow lose against Sunderland. It is what it is, man. I mean, if I bring in Gordon and he blanks, it's not the end of the world. It's a bit frustrating. And then I would say, oh, I wish I saved my transfer, but it's not going to dictate anything. Unless he gets sent off and something like that, I don't think I'm going to care too much. Yeah, the best free hit team is covered already. Yeah, it's literally on screen right now. And I'm not a big fan of it. I'm also encouraging people in the live chat to give their suggestions because I think it could be improved upon a little bit, but I just don't really see a massive upside from my perspective in terms of my squad. Maybe I'm wrong, and there is a big difference. Yeah, the best week for a free hit, in my opinion, is 34, because a lot of the teams that double in 33, which you'll want to have as many doublers for as possible, will blank in 34. So to navigate those 2 weeks seamlessly, you could wildcard in 32 or just use free transfers, then bench boost or triple captain in 33, and then free hit in 34, which is my current strategy. Gordon against Rodgers, there's not much in it. If Rodgers showed an ounce of form, he would be the one, but we haven't seen that, so I think at the moment I'd lean towards Gordon, and the penalties does help. Yeah, so my chip strategy at the moment is wildcard 32, either bench boost or triple captain in 33. The other would be in 36. Now that all depends on when the double's for. If it's 35 instead of 36, then what I said basically applies to 35 instead, and the free hit would be in Blank Gameweek 34. Should I remove Mukiele for a -4? No, I said that earlier. I'm not going to change my mind. Haaland to Ekitike to start over Enzo or save free transfer? Save the transfer, start Enzo. Based on the FA Cup draw last week, which team likely get a double game week? Newcastle, Man City are 2 of them. Arsenal's another one. It was all covered, by the way, in my recent videos, and I went through different game weeks, including 33, with the current projections, so that was all talked about there. Burnley could double as well, but nothing is guaranteed at the moment. Chelsea, by the way, your team would be another potential doubler. Hi, Dylan. I've got 2 free transfers. Should I go with Rice and Haaland for Gordon and Ekitike? Yeah, looks good to me. Ekitike is not really my favourite option up front. I did buy him in, to be fair, but he's very inconsistent. You just have to hope that he has one of his good days and he can do his weird celebration. Yeah, I'm not sure about double Newcastle defence. It's just for 31, because based on my scoreline predictions where I've gone for a Newcastle clean sheet, that's pretty much the only reason why. I don't fully trust it. I would not be surprised if no team kept a clean sheet this week, if I'm being completely honest. I think a lot of people would point towards Fulham as the most likely. Newcastle are second in the clean sheet odds, which I covered earlier. But from my perspective, I think Newcastle are more likely. But maybe that's not fully accurate or reliable. Yeah, we'll probably get doubles in 33, and like I said, it's either 35 or 36 for the other double, but nothing's confirmed yet. And in 34, we'll get another blank game week. Look, Rodgers could do well against West Ham. He scored a brace against them last time out, but I don't think he's better than Bruno Fernandes. No. I have 5 free transfers. Should I do Munoz to Anderson? Let's see, get this back up. And bench Hill or do Mbeumo to Gordon? There is a slim chance that Mbeumo's benched. I personally have him in my predicted lineup, by the way, but it's just worth sort of highlighting that. I think Munoz to Anderson is slightly better, but it is a very short-term punt because after this, Fulham are playing Liverpool and Brentford away. Thinking who's the best defender to bring in this week? For this week only, I'm looking at either Chow or Anderson, really, for people. But based on my scoreline predictions, I'm going to say Chow, which might not be everyone's cup of tea. Also, bench Anderson or Rodgers. I'd rather bench Anderson. I don't think Hall's a better option than Chow. No, I've been very consistent on this. I did a triple upload yesterday, and in my transfer tips, I talked about skipping Hall and buying Chow because the German international, or at least the German centre-back, has goal potential with 4 for the season, 9 big chances, more DEFCON and bonus points. With Lewis Hall, you get more assists, but that's about it. Not really. I don't think Truff's a great option. I'd rather have Senesi or Hill. I think they're better in FPL. Which striker to bring in for Haaland? João Pedro, Thiago, and then it's one of Bowen or Ekitike in that order. I'd pick Ekitike over Watkins. I just haven't seen enough from Aston Villa, and especially Watkins this season, to really vouch for him. Thank you, No Handles. Great stream as always. Struggling with starting one of Senesi or Van der Ven. Yeah, normally I just say Senesi with no hesitation, but I think both teams will concede. And I've gone for 1-1 in the Tottenham game, 2-1 for Manchester United in the Bournemouth match. But then Senesi can get Defcon. He's better for goal potential, I would say, or at least for assists than Van der Ven. It's a tough one, but I'm going to say Van der Ven this week. One of the rare times I'm going to say that, because I think Senesi is a far better FPL asset for sure. Hi, which two would you bench in Bimo, Aja, Dallo, and Dango? I'd bench Dallo and Aja, so I'd start the two attackers. Thoughts on Ndai captain? I don't think Ndai is a captaincy option for me because he's relatively consistent. I had him earlier this season, but he doesn't really get double-digit hauls. And I think someone like Wilson or Fernandes have a far higher ceiling, so it's a no from me. Welcome, Tradong. Coopsy Coop says, hi Dylan, I have 2 free transfers and 11 players, including Mukiele. So should I sell him for Van Dijk or risk it and roll and have free transfers for wildcard 32? I'd make the transfer. The thing is, because you're wildcarding in 32, you're basically doing a 1-week punt for a defender. And in my prediction, I've gone for Liverpool to draw 2-2 against Brighton. Now, could Van Dijk still haul in that game? Yes, because he can score from a set piece. He's got DEFCON potential. But yeah, I can see the conundrum here. It's not clear-cut, but I would make the transfer because there is a chance Mukiele doesn't even start, or he might not even feature at all. So you're down to 10 players. So I would buy in Van Dijk and hope for the best. Top 3 defenders for this week. Well, you can see them on screen, mate. Chow, Van Dijk, and Anderson is probably what I'd go for. I'm not a big fan of defenders this week, to be quite honest with you. Good long-term midfield options. I still think Rice and Semenyo, but I might sell one of them here for Anthony Gordon. I think Palmer's not really it in terms of value, right? So, yeah, maybe Anthony Gordon. Dare I say he's had a terrible season, but maybe. The last 2 games have pointed towards a sort of revival in his Premier League career. I think the other midfielders were all covered in my best wildcard team video, by the way. I still like Wilson. Despite the tough fixtures after Burnley at home, I'd recommend Wilson, Elliot Anderson, and of course, Bruno Fernandes. He is by far the best option in the game right now, so he's the one. Which of Salah or Rice to switch? Salah's out. Obviously, Rice is out too because Arsenal are playing in the cup final, but I'd rather sell Salah, to be honest with you. And I would go to Wilson, as mentioned earlier. Who's the best option out of Wilson and Gordon? Yeah, Wilson. Kelleher, Chalobah, Van der Ven, Hill, Mbumo, Bruno, Garner, Tavernier, Pedro, Thiago, Haaland, bench, Dubravka, O'Reilly, Semenyo, Gabriel. Thinking Chow and Gordon for Chalobah, Semenyo, -4. Looks good. I don't think you need to take a -4 hit. And I think with the defender move in particular, that's the one that kind of I'm a bit worried about. So I'd rather buy in Gordon for 3. The only downside is, yeah, Semenyo is still a good asset. And ironically enough, I'd rather sell Chalobah. So that's the sort of conundrum there. I think in your situation, I'd do Chalobah to Chow, actually, for 3. And maybe avoid Gordon, which is a bit risky based on the sort of traction he's getting. But I wouldn't take a hit involving a defender this week. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, Van Dijk or Anderson. I've gone for both teams to concede twice, by the way. Van Dijk's more likely to score. With DEFCON, they're both good, but maybe Anderson's slightly better. Van Dijk's better for bonus points, so it's going to be Van Dijk for me. Yeah, I'm good, Lupkin, I should say. What about you? I'd pick Wilson this week over Rodgers. Wilson got a 16-pointer versus Burnley in the last meeting. Shouldn't he be more obvious? I mean, yeah, it's a good point. He did get 16 points last time out, but it doesn't mean he's going to match that again. I think he will return. There's a reason why he's second in my captaincy list, but yeah, Bruno is the first choice because of his consistency and the form. Wilson obviously had that injury, missed a couple of games. He blanked against Forest, and Fulham are inconsistent. With Man United under Michael Carrick, we've seen a lot of goals, chances created, and Fernandes is getting goal output on a regular basis. So that's why he's the sort of go-to captain right now. But yeah, I think Wilson's underrated for sure. He's second in my list for a reason. Okay, so what I'm going to do before locking in my final transfer, and obviously for those that are unaware, this is my suggested free hit squad. I've got Palmer on the bench, which is ridiculous, by the way. I would probably start him over Ekitike, but I can imagine some people are probably fuming at that particular choice. But let's go to the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating. Wolves, Man United, Fulham, Brentford, Sunderland, Arsenal, Chelsea are in the bottom 7 until Game Week 36, whilst Man City, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Liverpool and Leeds are in the top 5. But it's worth mentioning, you're not going to get doubles in 35 and 36, so I think that does swing it in City and Crystal Palace's favour. We could see them drop if, well, once we get clarity on when the double's going to be, because right now it basically counts for 2 at the moment. With predicted prices, or I should say predicted points, Calvert-Lewin is 10th until 36. Anderson, that's Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest, Gordon, Ekitike and Mbeumo are just outside the top 5, which consists of Joao Pedro, Igor Thiago, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes and Erling Haaland. So Fantasy Football Hub are recommending Semenyo to Gordon and Dalot for Chow, but that would mean a -4 hit in my situation, which I'm not prepared to do. Let's refresh this page, and Lewis Hall, Wilson, Ekitike, Van Heck, Vandenberg, Troffer, and Leno could all rise tonight, whilst plenty of price falls are on the agenda, with Armstrong, Mateus Nunes, Lefay, who is doubtful, Trossard, Isidore, O'Reilly, Bruno Guimaraes, Chuana, Tolu, Carvalho, and Leon. Those are the potential price fallers, not all of them though. And let's refresh these results. So right now, Gay to Chow and Semenyo to Gordon is neck and neck, but I think it's also a question of the player to sell, and I think a lot of people would recommend keeping Semenyo beyond 31. My current plan, which has slightly changed from the team selection yesterday, is to sell Rice instead of Semenyo to bring in Anthony Gordon into the mix. The last vote is actually Roll with 15%. And I did compare several stats earlier. So, for example, Gordon with Mbeumo. But it's quite interesting because Gordon's stats are identical to Cole Palmer. And I did a poll earlier and 3/4 of you voted for Anthony Gordon. Let's now go to the best wildcard squad, sort of rough here. And you can get this sort of setup for double Game Week 33. And you also look quite solid for 32. But this would be with the free hit in 34 in mind because, yeah, it looks amazing for 33. But then look at this. So many blanks there. And that's very difficult to navigate without the free hit. So my current strategy is to wildcard in 32, which I'm still open to changing a little bit, maybe 35 instead. Bench boost and triple captain in 33 and 36, and that could be swapped in between them. And the free hit will be used in Blank Gameweek 34, that's for sure. And this is my current setup. By just getting in Gordon this week, I would have 7 doublers, 433, and I could bench boost feasibly in such a week there. And of course, the free hit squad, I went through that for quite a bit today, and a lot of you were interested in the best free hit team for Game Week 31. I would have 2 Fulham, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think Fulham keep a clean sheet, but it is still worth having Anderson on paper. And in fact, I think I've only gone for 1 clean sheet across all the teams in Newcastle. So that's why Ramsdale and Chow make it, despite conceding 7 to Barcelona on Tuesday. Or was it Wednesday, I should say? Wednesday in the early kickoff. I've gone for Van Dijk, Fernandes, Rodgers, Wilson, Gordon, Palmer, Joao Pedro, Thiago, with Dubravka, Ekitike, Dalot and Hill on the bench. Yeah, also, it's probably worth changing Dalot, to be fair. But who to? I mean, I don't really expect many clean sheets anywhere, to be quite honest with you. So this could even be a Brentford defender or something like that. But yeah, this could literally be anybody. I'm not really that fussed about it. So yeah, you can think of that as like a blank. It doesn't really matter with Dalot. Watch him end up keeping a clean sheet, which wouldn't be too bad for me, by the way. With FPL Challenge, this is my current setup. Kelleher away to Leeds, Chow facing Sunderland at home, Bruno Fernandes as the captain to capitalise on the creativity challenge this week, plus 6 points are awarded for players who create 3 or more chances. Rodgers, Wilson and Joao Pedro complete this FPL Challenge squad. I'll let these graphics play out. You're not going to see any highlighted messages, of course, with any of these graphics coming up, but Yeah, this is how I did in Gameweek 30. You can see the full review in my team selection video yesterday, where I did a triple upload for Fantasy Premier League, and earlier this week on the Monday, I did another triple upload for UCL Fantasy. So a lot of content for you this week, and even over the international break, the plan is still to do some FPL and UCL Fantasy videos. There could be a reaction stream tomorrow. If you want to see that, let me know down in the comment section. Like, subscribe. Let's get this over 100 likes on YouTube. That would be greatly appreciated. We saw plenty of price changes over the last couple of days, and that involves the likes of Malik Chow, who now costs 5.1 million, whilst Mark Gay went down to 5.1, like his teammate Antoine Semenyo, who now costs 8.2 million in Fantasy Premier League. But my current plan is to potentially sell Declan Rice instead. So that is a change from the team selection graphics you see on screen right now. So I could bring in Anthony Gordon at the expense of the Arsenal midfielder, whilst keeping Semenyo for Chelsea away and a potential double for Gameweek 33. With the captaincy, Wilson is definitely being considered, but Bruno Fernandes is currently my preference. But Wilson is actually top in terms of expected points with 6 now, which is very intriguing because only a few days ago he was at 3.8 according to the website Fantasy Football Hub. Let's go to some more websites, which include fantasyfootballpundit.com for the clean sheet odds, but these are my scoreline predictions, which don't look anything spectacular, especially when you're trying to build a defensive line. I've gone for Bournemouth 1, Man United 2, Brighton 2, Liverpool 2, Fulham 3, Burnley 2, Everton 1, Chelsea 2, a 1-1 draw between Leeds and Brentford, Newcastle 2, Sunderland 0, Aston Villa 3, West Ham 1, and Tottenham 1, Nottingham Forest 1. So with a team weakness, I'm highlighting Bournemouth because for me, the best option in the game, period, and maybe the best captain for Gameweek 31 and 32 is Bruno Fernandes, and his heat map is absolutely remarkable there. It aligns very well with Bournemouth's struggles in central areas, and Fulham are the ones at the top of the clean sheet odds with a 45% probability against Burnley at home. Speaking of which, the Clarets are bottom in 16th, of course, because 4 teams are blanking this week in Arsenal, Man City, Crystal Palace and Wolves. Newcastle are second, though, in these clean sheet odds, facing Sunderland at home, and then there's a big gap between them and third place Aston Villa, who are technically joint third with Chelsea. Leeds and Tottenham make up the top 6. And when it comes to the top 10 captains, there are some surprising names in here. I previously had Mohamed Salah, but he is out. That is confirmed by Arne Slot. So Gibbs White takes his place, facing Tottenham away. I've gone for Ekitike in 9th. Rodgers, Mbeumo and Gordon just miss out on the top 5, which has Thiago, Palmer, Joao Pedro, and for me, the captaincy is between Wilson and Bruno Fernandes. What I might do is refer to the coin, because every time I flip it after making a decision and the deadline is gone, it ends up landing on the one that I should have gone for per se, the one that breeds the most points. So that could be on the cards as well. Let's do heads for Bruno Fernandes and tails for Harry Wilson. Should we? I mean, I'm saying should we, and I'm just going to do it myself without any consent, you could say. So whatever, let's just do it. It landed on tails. It landed on bloody Harry Wilson. So maybe I should go for Harry Wilson. There you go. The coin has spoken. Will it be true? Will it be correct? Let's find out after the break. So now, let's go to predicted lineups before I go back to my team and lock things in. And we only have... Whoa. Are we starting with West Ham? Let's start with Aston Villa. Don't go anywhere. So here we go with Emi Martinez in goal. The main things to highlight here are the sort of concerns I've got. So at left back, I think Luka Dean will start over Ian Maatsen. And Barkley could be a starter in the midfield. And I'm backing Rodgers if there's any Aston Villa player to support or to have some stocks in. I think it is the midfielder here. With Bournemouth, I've gone for Jimenez at right back, but there is a chance that Krupi Jr. drops to the bench and we could see Rayan on the left, Tavernier in a central area, and then Smith as the right back, pushing Jimenez further forward. So next up is Brentford, and yeah, I think Coyote, he scored in the last game, of course. I think the main concern here would probably be in the midfield, but I've gone for Henderson, Yarmouk and Jensen for the Bees. And with Brighton & Hove Albion, yeah, there's always a few concerns, especially in the midfield and attack, but I've gone for Milner, Gross, and Hinchelwood as the free midfielders. With Burnley, they've recently changed to a 4-2-3-1 again. Fleming should start up front with Hartman as the left back, and also Laurent alongside Ward-Prowse in central midfield. Next up is Chelsea, who have a concern at right back with Reece James injured for several weeks, and Gusto is doubtful. Obviously, Chalobah's going to be out for the Everton game, so we could see Fofana with Hato, but don't rule out a different centre-back like Achimpong to complete this starting 11. Moving on to Everton, they've got some defensive issues of their own with Branthwaite and Tarkowski still yellow flagged, but David Moyes said he hopes that both of them are in and around the squad for the Chelsea game, and Michael Keane should be available, and I think he'll start alongside Tarkowski. Next up is Fulham, who have the best chance of a clean sheet this week, so it could be worth having a double up in their defence. I've got Anderson, and that's probably more than enough for me, but their leading Captaincy contender is Harry Wilson, who got a double-digit haul against Burnley last time out, as pointed out by Sam in the comments section. With Leeds United, they're sort of typical back five, but it has changed slightly with Goodmanson injured, so Justin will be the left wing back, and Biol will partner Rodon and Struijk in central defence. With Liverpool, there are 2 injuries in Alisson and Salah, so Mamardashvili and Szoboszlai should replace them in those respective positions, and Gakpo would start alongside Wirtz and Ekitike in that front line. With Manchester United, there is a concern here between Sesko and Mbeumo. One of them could drop out for Amad Diallo, but I've gone for the Cameroonian to start on the right and for the Slovenian to start up front. With Newcastle United, Tonali is doubtful, but I think he'll start in this derby against Sunderland. If not, Willett could take his place. I think Chow is the best defensive option for the Toonami, whilst Anthony Gordon is on penalties and leading the line. We have a few teams left here, including Nottingham Forest, who have been quite stable, but Hudson-Odoi missed out in midweek due to injury, so we could see Ndoi on the left-hand side, or their goal scorer, Nicolas Dominguez, the Argentine, could play on the left or right-hand side, and that could give Vitor Pereira another solution. With Tottenham Hotspur, they recently switched to a back four, and we could see Richarlison up front with Kolo Muani, Xavi Simons and Tell as the front four. Van der Ven and Romero are available, and Kinski should be the goalkeeper because Vicario will undergo surgery, so could that change Tottenham Hotspur's fortunes from now until the end of the season? Only time will tell. We have 2 teams left, including Sunderland. Lefay is yellow flag, but I think he'll do everything possible to feature at St James's Park. And Renildo Mandava is now available, but Robin Roths hasn't made it in time. We could see him return against Tottenham at home in Game Week 32. The last squad to cover is West Ham, who have switched to a back three. It seems like they have reversed their roles with Tottenham Hotspur. And I think Hermanson will be in goal with Todibo, Mavropanos and Disasi. And it's pretty much what you would expect from West Ham recently. They've been more stable in their starting 11s, and the scores you see on the top right-hand side of your screen is basically my correct predictions for the season. And for most of them, 330 is the maximum I could have gotten right, basically. Arsenal and Villa will be slightly different. You're going to see my predictions for them going into Game Week 32, of course, after the international break. But let's start locking in our teams. We've only got 19 minutes left. 18 and a half, you could say. So let's get things rolling. But before I make my transfer, let's go through the next super chat. Thank you very much to AM8989. Chow or Anderson, Haaland to Pedro, wildcard in 32. Yeah, between Chow and Joachim Anderson, long term I prefer Chow. And as I said before, in my scoreline predictions, I think Newcastle are the only team to keep a clean sheet. I could be wrong about that. I really could. And I think most people would logically point towards Fulham having the best fixture on paper against Burnley. But I've gone for a high-scoring thriller there. A 3-2 win for the home side. So my answer would be Chow, and I would sell Haaland to Pedro. Yes, I would. It's what I did last week when Haaland featured against West Ham, a team he always does well against, and I did it for a -4 hit, bear in mind. So yeah, I'd still stick with that, with the Norwegian missing out this weekend because of the Carabao Cup final. So Fernandez is still leading this captaincy poll quite comfortably. Gonna see if there are any other bits of news on Twitter, but I am quite happy to lock in my squad. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna lock things in, I believe. Just have it all set. So yeah, I think Declan Rice could actually make way here. And I'm going to go to Anthony Gordon. Who would have thought? He was one of my heroes in UCL Fantasy for the first leg of the knockout phase playoffs, where I captained him. That was a game changer. Hopefully he can do something similar here against Sunderland. Yeah, I think Rice to Gordon is my transfer. It does mean I still have only one available move. And with this poll, what I'm going to do here is actually end it and do another one. Let's just see how we're doing in general, though. So we are close to 100 likes. Let's be sure to get to that. It'd be massively appreciated. I've answered dozens of questions. I've lost count of them. And I've also gone through so many different screens, stats, and data. So you're well prepared for Blank Gameweek 31 and beyond. Also with your chip strategies. I covered the best free hit squad for this particular game week. My preference is to use that chip in Blank Gameweek 34, of course. But yeah, you get a lot of value from this video. So make sure to show support to the channel as we close in on 39,000 subscribers on YouTube. Hi, who should I transfer? Rice and Haaland to? I'm thinking Pedro and Palmer or Gordon. I'd go for Pedro and Palmer, but with Chelsea's recent form, there is an element of risk there. That's for sure. But I do have Palmer 4th in my captaincy list, and Gordon is slightly lower. I did go through those lists and the graphics and stats like twice in this video, so make sure to rewind, and you can always go back to the live section after. But yeah, it would be Palmer for me. Yeah, exactly. Lock in. Definitely. Gordon or Szoboszlai long term? I like Szoboszlai a lot in UCL Fantasy, and both of them have been brilliant in that game. But in the Premier League, if I'm buying one now, it's probably going to be Gordon. On penalties, leading the line, 18 points in the last 2 game weeks. And just the fixture against Sunderland at home, yeah, I'm backing Gordon a little bit more than Szoboszlai, who, to be fair, scored against Tottenham. I did reply to your super chat, AM. I went through it. I literally went through it just a few minutes ago. So the answer is Chow, and I would go to João Pedro. That's literally what I said. Anderson for a -4? No. Rice and Haaland out for Gordon and João Pedro, or Szoboszlai and Jimenez? Yeah, I covered your question earlier. I went for Gordon and João Pedro. I can actually see, because I'm pretty sure Gordon has faced Sunderland before in the FA Cup. I think it was a 3-0 win for Newcastle. Obviously, times have changed, but I just want to have a little look. Let's see. Possibly he might have scored in that game, but I'm just going to have a double check here. No, Isak scored 2 goals and Ballard had an own goal. Yeah, Gordon didn't score or assist. Even Almiron got an assist. That's crazy. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the way to go, because if not, it's just Gay to Chow, but I think Gordon's ceiling is higher this week. All right, so yeah, not going to overcomplicate it. 2.1 in the bank after making this move. Declan Rice to Anthony Gordon. And just before I do it, you can see Rice cost 7.3 million in FPL. That's also my selling price, so I'm not losing any value in him. with Anton Semenyo, I would lose, well, 0.1, which isn't much, but yeah, I think I'd rather keep Semenyo in the long term. So yeah, time to bring in Anthony Gordon, I believe. Unfortunately, it looks like a lot of people are doing the same thing. Not maybe too surprising, I guess, but yeah. I am tempted by Gibbs White against Tottenham away, just because of the whole transfer saga. It's a bit like Eze, who always does well against them after almost joining them. But yeah, Anthony Gordon comes in for Rice. Keep it simple, and he is going to complete my starting 11 on the left-hand side. So here we go. And he could be considered for the captaincy, but I'm sticking with one of Fernandes or Wilson. So the last poll I'm going to put out is actually about the goalkeepers, and I will go for the Super Chats next. So just wait a minute or so, and I will be with you very soon. Thanks very much for sending them in. Okay, so let's go for that. Make sure to vote in the poll. Yo, Dylan, my brain's fried. 5 free transfer, 0.8 in the bank. Dubravka, Senesi, Hill, Mbumo. Fernandes, Wilson, Wirtz, Ekitike, Joao Pedro, Thiago, rest blank. So you've got 10 players already. The thing is, it's about the quality of players as well. And you've got 2 Bournemouth options against Man United. So I can understand some of your hesitations. I'm not sure what your other players are. I mean, you don't have Haaland. Okay, I can say that from your team. But you have Semenyo and or Rice. Maybe a City defender, probably Gabriel too. And maybe Raya. Okay, so what I would consider is selling your City defender to Malik Chow. I'd consider that. And possibly a midfield move like Rice to Anthony Gordon. You could even go against the grain and buy Rodgers. I know he's template still, but people are selling him and they're having second doubts. I still think you could do well against West Ham. So that would be my recommendation with your transfers. And you don't need to use all of them. Just because you have 5, yeah. Using 2 of them now and then having 4 for the next week, yeah, that's going to be a good position to be in. So that's my recommendation, mate. And there you can bench. Oh yeah, actually you've got... Maybe it's time for another defender transfer as well. It's just I don't recommend selling Gabriel. Don't sell Gabriel. Especially if you have value tied up in him. But yeah, I would do that. 1 midfielder move and then possibly 2 defender transfers. Malik Chow can come in. Even Joachim Andersen as a 1-week punt or Virgil van Dijk. That would be pretty good. Even if you use free transfers, let's say, you're still in a good position with 3 available moves next week. But don't use all of them. That's my advice there. Itum Lad says free transfer 0.2 in the bank. 1 free transfer for a full 11. Mukiele, Tavernier and Krupi starting, so might spend all the transfers as I'm going to wildcard next week anyways. Yeah, but it's still quite useful to have available transfers after wildcarding, but I get your point. I think in your situation, it's just about tackling what's right in front of you. So yeah, Mukiele, I don't expect to start, as you saw my predicted lineups, and I think Newcastle will score a goal or 2 anyway. Tavernier is decent, and if Krupi starts against United, he's still a okay option, but I'm not entirely convinced about his minutes. So with 1 free transfer for a full 11, I would focus on the attack, to be fair. But I don't know who you've got in your squad, because it might be a case where you've got Mukiele in your starting 11, but if he doesn't play, you're down to 2 defenders, and therefore you're down to 10 players overall. So that also influences the final answer to this question, but my preference is to make midfielder or forward transfers if possible, and that's where you could even do something like Krupi to Joao Pedro if you have the funds. I mean, in your case, you've got 0.2, so that requires a downgrade elsewhere. So tough situation to be in. It is quite tough, and I don't even know the value you've got in certain players like Mukiele, but I would be inclined to keep Tavernier and sell Mukiele and Krupi potentially. That could be a conversation there. Or even some of these blankers like Rice or Semenyo. And if you've got Mark Gay, I'd be inclined to sell him to a Chow as one example. And in the midfield, you can bring in someone like Gordon. Obviously, Fernandes is the absolute standout. He's the one I'd recommend, but I'm assuming you've got him already. So let me know in a non-super chat, Itzum Lad, who you've got. I think that will help me a lot to determine the best transfers to make. Yeah, I think so. Probably all ready for later tonight. You can say that. So if you use all our chips consecutively, then we won't have any extra transfers by Gameweek 35. Is that right, dude? Well, the chips have no influence really on transfers per se. Yeah, so when you wildcard, for example, on free hit, that is true. But in terms of bench boost and triple captain, that doesn't really matter. You can still roll, or if you make a transfer, it doesn't influence how many available moves you've got at your disposal. But yeah, with the free hit, that is a good point. Voting for the worst options to throw off my competitors. Fair enough. You're not the only one who does that, I think. Dewsbury Hall or Gordon? I prefer Gordon this week. I have only 6 players that can play, 2 free transfers. Yeah, in your situation, I'd probably free hit. I prefer using in 34. That's going to be a very tough one to navigate, especially if you have a lot of doublers in 33. To be fair, you could even take a -4 hit and stick with 9 players this week. Even 8, assuming they're good quality players, like Wilson, Fernandes, you've got the main options, then there is a case to maybe just save the free hit for 34 anyway, but it's not ideal. Sell Haaland and Semenyo and Chalobah -4 to Bassi, Wilson, Joao Pedro. Not a big fan of Bassi. The other two look really good, but look, maybe Bassi scores. Like, back your gut on that one, and if you think Fulham keep a clean sheet, it's worth bringing in a defender. Maybe you've got Anderson already, but I do prefer him over Bassi. I went for FPL Challenge twice, and as you know by now, the focus is on FPL for the next couple of minutes, and once that deadline is gone, I'll then cover FPL Challenge briefly. Hey Dylan, fellow Gunner here. Good to see you. Would you sell Rodgers to Szoboszlai for free or sausage roll? I'd roll there. I think Rodgers is better than Szoboszlai this week anyway. Ray into Bruno for a hit? Yes. I think Bruno's worth it. Thank you, Keith. Captain Wilson or Bruno? It's close. It really is. What's happening here, by the way? What the? Okay, I think I've sorted that. But yeah, I'm going for Bruno at the moment. Very close one. What I'm probably going to do, though, which might even change my mind, apart from the coin, which I flipped earlier. Where did I put the coin? Bloody hell. Oh, yes, right here. Just in case I need a reroll. Let's have a look at these players' records against these clubs. Unfortunately, my bloody internet is acting up at the moment. Has it actually done a duplicate? That could also be causing some issues. That's really annoying. Let's disconnect then quickly. Okay, let's check these records briefly. So Wilson record versus Burnley. Obviously, you got a big return last time out. And Fernandes against Bournemouth. I think it's a solid record overall. Nothing spectacular, but pretty neat, especially at the Vitality Stadium. So Bruno Fernandes has 4 goals and 4 assists in 8 matches against Bournemouth. And in away matches, he blanked last time in terms of official goals and assists. But he did score a brace in a 2-2 draw in the 23-24 campaign. And he did blank in a 1-0 win. But he might have gotten the FPL assist, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he did get an FPL assist in one of those away games. Yeah. As for Harry Wilson against Burnley, if I can find that, we've only got like 2.5 minutes remaining, so make sure to lock everything in. Captain and vice-captain the right players. Sort out your starting 11, even though many of us have a lot of blankers this week. Where are you? Where's Burnley? Oh, I'll find them. Would be pretty nice to find out before the deadline. All right, here we go. 1 goal, 2 assists in 3 matches. And I'm pretty sure they all came in the last match. Yeah, they did. So both of them have a goal contribution per game against their respective opponent, but Fernandes has a bigger sort of sample size. But yeah, Wilson obviously got a massive haul last time out against Burnley. So that could be a great shout. It really could. So let me know in the live chat, are you going for Harry Wilson or are you sticking with the template Bruno Fernandes pick? And as for your goalkeeper, are you sticking with Dubravka, Robert Sanchez? What other dilemmas do you have? But thank you to those that have put something in the live chat. Let me see quickly if I can get to Item's question, because I just saw, yeah. So my team is Raya, Dubravka, Gabriel, Richards, Van Dijk, Anderson, Michele, Bruno Fernandes, and Mbeumo, Wilson, Tavernier, Semenyo, Haaland, Krupi, Thiago. I would be tempted to sell Haaland still, and you can go to João Pedro in your case and get to that 11. Yeah, you've got Van Dijk already, Anderson, but Michele will likely miss out, so you could be down to 10 men anyway. So what I'd recommend is actually selling Richards. And there you can go to Chow potentially, especially with the João Pedro money, by selling Erling Haaland. If you were to make a midfield move, I would probably say Gordon, but I don't think so in your case. I think I'd keep what you got, which includes Semenyo, and do the other transfers I suggested. Let me know what you think of that. Something else you could do, by the way, is get a third forward in, and then do Krupi Jr. to Ekitike or Bowen. But I think what I recommended with the defender transfer, Richards out and selling Haaland, looks pretty solid. Semenyo to Elliot Anderson might be worth it. I still like Semenyo long term, to be fair. No worries, Keith. Much appreciated. Yeah, just got a -16 with no free hit or wildcard. I don't like that at all. It looks like a low-scoring week on paper. I wouldn't recommend massive hits like that, to be honest. But all the best to you and everyone else. I'm going for Bruno at the moment as my captain, a bit boring. Dubravka's winning this poll ever so slightly, 51%, but I think Sanchez has the better chance of a clean sheet. Could Bruno blank ruin the game week? Possibly, especially because it's the first game. But yeah, I think a captaincy haul would definitely help. It just gives you that foundation and a solid base and foundation for a green arrow. But the deadline has closed now. I said this before, Gordon for me, over Szoboszlai. Chow or Hall? I've said this all week. Chow. Yeah, for this week only maybe with Elliot Anderson, but I think Gibbs-White has the highest ceiling against Tottenham. Thank you, Lewis Mark. Garner to Gordon, Szoboszlai for a hit. No, I would just keep Garner. I sold Semenyo and Chalobah and Chow and Gordon to be able to field 11. I like the 2 Newcastle players. I think one of them will return for you. Only time will tell which one that will be. And by the way, I remember you said, Twisted Parky, last week you captained João Pedro and he always blanks. Yeah, thanks for that. Pedro, Thiago or Bruno worth going for against Bruno? I'm guessing that was Wilson instead of Bruno. I think Wilson's the best one to challenge Bruno Fernandes. The best defender this week, probably a Newcastle one like Malik Chow, but that all depends on who you think keeps a clean sheet or not. And we could get some unpredictable goals, if you will, like Virgil van Dijk scoring in a 2-2 draw against Brighton. That can happen, but probably it's going to be Chow or Anderson overall. No need for the caps, mate. Got to fix that issue you got. Szoboszlai penalty taker. No Salah. Yeah, but Gordon's also penalty taker. But yeah, Szoboszlai has been a decent FPL asset. He's been even better in UCL Fantasy, where he was amazing for me last week. But yeah, for 2 weeks, it's still Gordon, in my opinion. So fair with his free hit team. Kelleher, Van Dijk, Anderson, Chow, Wilson, Bruno captain, Palmer, Gordon, João Pedro, Thiago, Ekitike. That's very similar to my current free hit squad that I recommended. So just to make it clear, I'm not free hitting this week. But yeah, I went for Ramsdale instead of Kelleher. So fair enough. That's more balanced and diverse. You're hedging your bets a little bit defensively. But yeah, that bench is very similar. You've put Rodgers on the bench though. Romero. Yeah, I think Romero's a good shout actually over Dalot. Although Tottenham can't be relied upon defensively. But yeah, the deadline has closed now. But would I have started Rodgers? Probably. And it might be unpopular, but I'd recommend starting him over Ekitike. Well, I would have recommended it. Rice to Rodgers or Haaland to Pedro, -4 hit. I prefer Pedro, so it's going to be that. But yeah, selling Haaland for here is always difficult, even when he doesn't play, to be honest. But yeah, that's probably the one. Benched Mbeumo for DCL. Good luck there. I mean, Mbeumo could be benched, so that would help you. But I think he will start. I mean, Mbeumo is still very crucial to Man United. Yeah, locked indeed. Let's go. Gordon or Wilson? Wilson. Captain Gordon instead of Bruno. And Palmer. Hope it does not backfire. Well, hopefully fortune favours the brave in your case. Yeah, I think the captaincy could be interesting. That could be one of the biggest swings this week. And if Wilson ends up hauling and Bruno blanks, I will regret it a little bit, to be fair. Kelleher or Ramsdale? I prefer Ramsdale this week. Yeah, green arrows galore, hopefully. I prefer Ekitike in FPL, but it's a completely different story in UCL Fantasy. Why Fernandes over Wilson? I mean, Fernandes' consistency is unreal. He's got 16 assists. The underlying numbers are superior. Good record against Bournemouth. 8 goal contributions in 8 games. A couple of fantasy assists as well, so that takes it to 10 plus, I believe. And yeah, I think the way Fernandes is playing is unbelievable. He did start the season quite slowly, which is why I personally wouldn't have him as the player of the year, but he's still up there in the nominees, and he's the only captaincy option we can rely upon week in, week out. And I think United will win against Bournemouth. Buy Rodgers or Wilson? I'd rather buy Wilson. Sell Alderete with 1 free transfer. Yeah, Chow's a good replacement in the same game. Bring in Gordon for Enzo or Anderson for Keane to bench Hill. I'd rather bring in Anderson. Joachim Anderson, that is. Start Iwobi or Hill? Iwobi. Captain on the single match first day can be painful. It can be, but the last time I did that with Fernandes, he got... Yeah, I think he returned. He might have even scored in that game. I can't remember what it was. But let's actually go through it. I'm going to have a look to previous game weeks. I think it was early in the season, like a couple of months ago. And it was an early kickoff. Yeah, it was against Tottenham. Even though it's a bit different because that technically wasn't the first game, because Leeds played Forest the day before. But let's see. Yeah, also Fernandes against Man City, 2-0 win. You got a return there. I think Fernandes can beat the kickoff curse. Yeah, there was the 1-0 game against Newcastle on Friday night, where he did blank, to be fair. Oh dear. Spurs 2, Man United 2. Fernandes got an assist. And that was another early kickoff, but yeah, I'm trying to see if there's like an example on the Friday night. Yeah, Brentford 3, United 1. Fernandes missed penalty. Let's not talk about that one. But yeah, I think if there's one player who can break the kickoff curse, or at least the sort of first game, I think Fernandes is the one. One with Thiago captain. He's 5th in my list. I think it's a good option. So all the best with that one. What I'm going to do is show my FPL challenge team. And yeah, obviously I was showing the free hit squad for a while, but this is my final squad. So before I go to FPL challenge, I've gone for Robert Sanchez in goal. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Let me just close that just to prevent confusion. So Sanchez is my goalkeeper over Dubravka. I've got Dalot, Van Dijk and Anderson as my 3 defenders. Bruno Fernandes as my captain. Rodgers, Wilson Vice, and Anthony Gordon, who replaced Declan Rice. That sounds pretty nice, by the way. Nice little internal rhyme. João Pedro, Thiago, and Ekitike as my 3 forwards. And on my bench, Dubravka away to Fulham, Semenyo, Gabriel, and Mark Gahey. And let's go now to FPL challenge. Don't know why I spoke like that, but yeah. I've got Kelleher away to Leeds. You can only pick 1 player per club. Chow at home to Sunderland. Bruno Fernandes captain. Rodgers, Wilson, and João Pedro. This week it is called Creativity. You get plus 6 points for any player who creates 3 or more chances. And I'll leave my scoreline predictions one last time. And obviously for the predicted lineups, it's worth mentioning I did change from what I said earlier, and I did show it only a couple of minutes ago. It might have been 20-30 at this point. Mamardashvili should start over Alisson because the Brazilian has suffered another injury. I've gone for Bournemouth 1, Man United 2, Brighton 2, Liverpool 2, Fulham 3, Burnley 2, Everton 1, Chelsea 2, Leeds 1, Brentford 1, Newcastle 2, Sunderland 0, Aston Villa 3, West Ham 1, and Tottenham Hotspur 1, Nottingham Forest 1. So 4 teams are blanking this week, Arsenal and Man City because of the Carabao Cup final. And the same goes for Crystal Palace and Wolves, with that Man City Crystal Palace game yet to be rescheduled. All right, so I'll leave it on FPL Challenge, I guess, for the remainder of the stream. Hi, Dylan. Anderson or Hill? Anderson. And a wicked game with 31 locked or loaded. Yeah, I hope it's not wicked, if you know what I mean. If I have bench boost and free hit, when is the best time to use it? Probably bench boost in 33 and free hit 34. There is a case to bench boost in 36. It all depends on how the doubles land. There is a chance that in 35 or 36, whichever one ends up being the double, that will be bigger than 33. And in that case, it could look more appealing. But my current strategy is to wildcard 32, bench boost 33, free hit 34, and triple captain in 35 or 36, depending on when the doubles land. Yeah, locked in. Good luck, Dylan and everyone. Likewise, Arnab. I just moved captaincy from Gordon to Bruno. Let's see how that ends up going. Captain Wilson and Vice Captain Fernandez. Interesting. I do like Wilson a lot this week. Kai says, I'm chasing in my mini league, so I went Szoboszlai over Gordon. I've been burned by Gordon in the past. Historically, Gordon's been good for me in FPL, and obviously I talked about that 27-point haul he got in UCL Fantasy against Karabag. Yeah, I've got a good history of Gordon, but there have been some bad moments, especially last season. Good luck this week, and come on, you Gunners, on Sunday. Yes, big game. Hopefully Arsenal get the job done and can have a special season. Very strong team, Dylan. Thank you, Genius Gamer. Hopefully it produces because, yeah, the rank isn't particularly great. I'm not happy with it. Had Gabriel, Virgil, Chow, and Hill need to transfer out Timber for 4.7 million defender. Thinking of Cash or Konsa? Probably Cash, but I'm not a big fan of either. Yeah, in that case, I would have gone for Joachim Andersen, just because of Gameweek 31, really. Went for Chow and Joao Pedro in for Richards and Haaland. Appreciate the advice. Thank you, Itum lad. And I'm glad that I've, well, provided some value. Hopefully they produce some points, though. Sometimes you can give good advice or make good decisions in your case, but yeah, you need a bit of lady luck to go in your favour. Hopefully Tavernier and Krupi can do something, but not too much, as I'm a United fan. Yeah, I've seen some weird things, you know, someone supporting their own club, but then they want the players who are facing their own team to do well. That's what fantasy football can do to you, but I've never reached that stage. I've captained players against Arsenal when we were very bad, and whilst I got points, I found no joy in it. None whatsoever. Xavi Simons for the game week. He played very well against Atletico Madrid. He produced 19 points in the Champions League. Let's see if he can replicate that in this competition, but not for me. I think there are better options, even Gibbs White from the same match, and Elliot Anderson long-term is just a great value in general. Wilson's a good captain. I might regret not going for him in the end. If Gordon ends up hauling or Joao Pedro, yeah, maybe a little bit, you know, it bothers me, but Wilson would be a different level because he was one of my main contenders all week, and with good reason. I'm not sure exactly when this City Palace double game will be rearranged. I haven't seen that, to be fair. But yeah, it could be 36. I mean, that's where I was kind of thinking of originally, so that's where the triple captain Haaland could come into play if I bring him back in, but no one knows at the moment for sure. I will have a look, though, and see where it's been circulating. Yeah, so I think Gimmick 36 is more likely. There is a chance of 35. So Man City would face Brentford at home and Crystal Palace at home in 36, whilst Palace would face Everton at home and Man City away. If it were to happen in 35 instead, the double for C would be Everton away, Crystal Palace at home, and for Palace it would be Bournemouth away, City away. So yeah, that looks a bit more likely. We could also see a potential double, although it seems unlikely, for Liverpool facing Chelsea at home and Aston Villa away, but it does seem more probable in 33 actually. it might be worth having it on screen. And I did have a graphic from like last week, but this is an updated version, so this will be a bit more useful. So this is credit to Ben Krellin. So as you can see, in 33, the likely doubles are Arsenal facing Man City away and Newcastle at home. Newcastle would face Bournemouth at home and Arsenal away. Brighton would have Tottenham away and Chelsea at home, whilst Chelsea would face Man United at home and Brighton away. With the possible double game weeks, which is a bit less likely but probably feasible, that would include Man City facing Arsenal at home and then Burnley away or Crystal Palace at home, whilst Crystal Palace would face West Ham at home and then either Liverpool or Man City away. Meanwhile, Liverpool would face Everton away and Crystal Palace at home, and Burnley would face Nottingham Forest away, Man City at home. But if not, Liverpool would have their double in 36. It is less likely though. And Aston Villa could see a double themselves in 36 facing Burnley away and Liverpool at home, but if not, they will just feature in Game Week 37 instead of blanking. So this graphic is very clear, of course. You can see in 34 the teams that will likely blank. So that includes Arsenal against Newcastle and Brighton against Chelsea. Even the likes of Man City, Burnley could also blank, and that could bring the Burnley game forward to 33. Crystal Palace as well. That's why all of this sort of intertwines with each other. 34 has a direct impact on the teams doubling in 33, and that's where the free hit can be very useful in Blank Gameweek 34, which is my current chip strategy at the moment. That's the one that seems almost locked in. With the other chips, I'm open-minded, but the wildcard could be used over this international break, going into Game Week 32 with only one free transfer. If injuries and suspensions pop about, then that's where the wildcard will just be more likely in terms of being deployed over the next couple of weeks. And yeah, the triple captain and bench boost, probably the bench boost in 33, triple captain 36, but it all depends on how these doubles end up landing. Okay, so just to show you my FPL squad one final time, and I'm going for a few questions, but to be fair, we're going to get the lineups any second now. So, yeah, for Bournemouth and Man United, I'll cover that. They're going to be out now. So what I'll do is we'll just have my predicted lineups pop out on screen. You won't see my ugly mug for the time being. And meanwhile, I'll have the Bournemouth and United 11s all ready for you. So we can see how I did as well with my other predictions. Manchester United. Let's get them up. The hell did... What? Okay. I think I finally got there at 11. 11? Can't even speak. It's been a long one. And let's get Bournemouth as well. Feel free to comment as well on any of the predicted lineups. Drop a like as well. Show support to the channel. Subscribe. Click the hype button. Share this with those who love FPL and UCL Fantasy. I'll still be making content. Okay, I think now I can actually control my own bloody computer. Yeah, why the... Who gives a fuck about Wolves? Piss off. Yeah. Well, either way, you can actually see... and it's not even updated anyway. How about West Ham? No. Yeah, well, forget about Wolves anyway. They're not featuring this week. So, let's now go to the expected points. Expected points? What am I talking about? Bloody hell. Let's go to Bournemouth's 11. So, Petrovic, Troffer, Senesi, Scott, Ivanilson, Christie, Tavernier, Jimenez, Adley, Hill, and Rayan. So, I got 10 out of 11 correct for the Cherries. So, the difference being Adley instead of Krupi Jr. I'm not surprised to see the Frenchman on the bench. Meanwhile, for Man United, Lamens, Dalot, Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, Yoro, Ahmad, Casemiro, Imbumo, Shaw, and Mainu. So Sesko is on the bench once more. So Ahmad does start, and Imbumo is leading the line. So there you go. Those lineups have been covered for the 8 PM kickoff in the UK, and hopefully you have enjoyed this stream. But let's go for a few more questions for the remainder. And yeah, we're literally just a few likes away from 100, so let's be sure to get to that. It would be greatly appreciated, of course. I have answered Dozens of questions, like I said, and in fact, we've just hit it, so thank you very much. And when we approach April, I will be gifting memberships as well, as I do every single month, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Bruno versus Gandhi. Yeah, technically this is not the early kickoff, if you will, but yeah. We'll see if Fernandes can get a return. Let's relax, guys. Fernandes will break the curse, Dylan. Well, he's done it already, but sometimes you get even the best of assets blanking. It happens. They're human, and Fernandes had a shaky start to the campaign after all, but he is in brilliant form. That's why I ended up captaining him, but we'll see how he ends up doing. Benzu says, hi, ended up selling Tarkovsky plus 2 players blanking. Thoughts? Well, depends who you sold Tarkovsky to, but yeah, if you have 9 players of a decent quality, that should be enough. I don't think it'll be a high-scoring week this time out. Yeah, the time where Derby will be interesting. Yeah, we'll see what happens in Tyneside, but I think Newcastle will win. Yeah, I think it's a fast, to be fair, easy about Senegal, their trophy being stripped. Yeah, it's absolute madness, really. Most interesting game, Spurs against Forest. Agreed. Yeah, there's a lot riding on that. Well, obviously, I mean, I'd be surprised if Senegal didn't bring it to court, but I'm not even sure if the decision will be overturned. Well, yeah, neither should they, really, but it's kind of mad that it even happened the way it did and the timing of it. Just went with Wilson instead of Palmer, says Ian. Yeah, good luck with that. I think Wilson is a really good captaincy option, and I do like Palmer this week, but Chelsea and Palmer himself has been very inconsistent this season. Is it time we have Sesko on our teams? The thing is, though, there's also Bowen, who's been very consistent. Sesko's not starting games consistently. He's on the bench right now. And you've also got Ekitike, although he's fairly inconsistent. I think Joao Pedro and Thiago are the standouts. And once Haaland is back in form and getting doubles, yeah, I think Haaland will still be on our agendas. Sydney says, my team looks good for Gameweek 32. Plus, I'm projected to have 6 doublers and 33. I have 3 transfers and my wildcard bench boost free hit still to play. Yeah, still the same as I said for myself. Wildcard 32, maybe bench boost 33, free hit 34, and the triple captain in 36. Now, it depends on when the double's for. It could be 35 instead. And you could even intertwine or interchange, I should say, the bench boost and triple captain chips, depending on your strategy and the way things are set up for you. And a lot will obviously depend on how the fixtures end up being scheduled. But that's my current strategy, and for a lot of people it works. 52% we are captaining Bruno. We are 100% sure he'll do well today, because people think first game always the curse. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's still a tough fixture against Bournemouth away. Maybe not as tough as last season, but yeah, Man United have been the best side in the Premier League since Michael Carrick has come in, but obviously that's a short sample size. And yeah, United have a lot to play for. They need to get a win here. And Fernandes has been instrumental in all their goals recently. After so many weeks, me and my rival separated by 2 points in UCL Fantasy. So annoying, I blew the lead Gordon gave me, and last week was doing well until he had Rafinha and Yamal. So annoying that Newcastle collapsed. Yeah, Newcastle, their tactics were very strange to say the least against Barcelona. And if they play the way they do in the Premier League, especially against the likes of Man City and Arsenal, I'd say, where they're very aggressive, but they aren't playing a high line and just playing this kamikaze football, then yeah. Look, it worked in the home games, obviously, but to play Barcelona away is a different kettle of fish, and yeah, ultimately it was a disaster to lose 7-2. I still think Newcastle were in a good position at 2-2, but that penalty just before half-time kind of killed them off a bit. Szoboszlai has 56 key passes. Is he a shout for challenge? Yes, I think so. I think it's worth having a Liverpool player, and Szoboszlai could be the one in challenge. He's been brilliant this season, by the way. After the international break, will there be FA Cup matches before Game Week 32? Yeah, good question. I don't... Wait, let me have a look. We do have FA Cup games after this. After Game Week 31. So the next FA Cup games are... Where the hell are you? Yeah, in early April. So yeah, just before Game Week 32. That's when we get the quarterfinals. Man City against Liverpool, Chelsea facing Port Vale, Southampton Arsenal, and West Ham Leeds. So between the 4th and 5th of April, we're going to get those matches take place. I was thinking Gordon or Thiago over Bruno, but didn't have the time to look at the stats. Yeah, I still think Fernandes is better than both. The one I'm really looking at, who I could regret not captaining, is Harry Wilson. Yeah, Courtois injured for the majority of this season. That's a massive blow for Real Madrid. And yeah, I wish I kept Harry Kane, but I still got 131 points in UCL Fantasy, so I can't complain. Thank you, Let's Talk Vinyl. I appreciate it. Hope you have a great game week, Dylan. Likewise, thank you very much. It's BS. Morocco agreed to play on, and they were accused of cheating all the way through. Completely agree. Yeah. I didn't follow the tournament, but yeah, I think that becomes clear. I wish Fernandes will give another 20 points. My mini leagues, our rivals are destroying me. But close the gap thanks to the last game week. Well, that's all you can do, and it's still possible to overcome that sort of gap, but you got to be on it from now until the end of the season. Those doubles and blanks coming up could be the difference maker. Thank you, Let's Talk Vinyl, and have a great game week as well. Kudus, Maddison, and other Spurs assets may be returning soon. Yeah, that could be the difference maker in Spurs staying up, and I think they will, by the way. But they shouldn't be in this position in the first place. Yeah, I got 131 points in UCL Fantasy. I just wish I could do that in FPL, and I would be very happy. Definitely. Now there are memes that the past results have to be reserved. I'm guessing reversed after what happened in AFCON. Yeah. I saw that. Death has passed from Chuck Norris. Yeah, all those memes. Rest in peace for sure. When do you recommend us to use the triple captain? 33 or 36, like I just said, but there is the possibility we get a double Gemic in 35 and not 36, so that does change it a little bit. My current plan is to use it in 36 and bench boost in 33, but that can be interchangeable. If Arsenal play Barca, who do you think will win? I think Arsenal can win, to be fair. A lot of Barca fans will tell you themselves, the one team they don't want to play against is Arsenal. It's the best defense in the world up against maybe the best attack. Barca have the edge historically, and I think their attack is really good and hard to keep out, but yeah, Arsenal are still a force to be reckoned with, and I don't know. I think Arsenal could go through, to be fair. I think Bayern and PSG are more complete teams than Barcelona, so even if Barca reach the final, I don't think they win the competition, to be honest with you. Morocco will be the team to get hated at the World Cup this summer. Yeah, I mean, it's just a farce anyway, the whole situation. What's your score prediction for Sporting Arsenal? For the away game, I mean, I'll talk about this in UCL Fantasy with Predict 6, right? But I'm going to go for maybe 1-0 Arsenal. I mean, it was 5-1 last time out, but I'm also conscious that Sporting knocked out Arsenal a few years ago in the Europa League. Did you select the team for last fan standing? No, I haven't. Hazard, Matic, Willian, Ramirez, Schürrle, Luiz, Eto'o, plus 3 so far unknown players were secured by Chelsea over other clubs through off-the-books undeclared payments. I thought you were just doing like a throwback to all these players from 2013, but yeah, dodgy business by Chelsea. Not surprised that you're pointing them out, Twisted Parky. Then the money generated from these obviously enabled the purchases of others. Well, yeah, they have long-term repercussions on results and stuff like that. And the same goes for Man City, but let me not say too much. Courtois injured until at the end of the season and can be fit for the World Cup. Yeah, he's going to miss the vast majority of games, and Real Madrid will miss him. Against Atletico Madrid coming up soon, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, a lot of big games there. Thanks for the streams every week for both FPL and UCL Fantasy. Well, thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. It's always fun talking to people about football and fantasy games, of course, and I've been doing it now for 6 years, and it's a pleasure to do these, and long may it continue. USA will be hated more in the world, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different teams that people hate, like Arsenal in the Premier League and the Champions League, just saying. Even Argentina at times. It feels good, you know, supporting teams that people hate sometimes, but yeah, I think USA Morocco would definitely be two of the antagonists, if you will, of the upcoming World Cup. Well, it's not Morocco doing it per se, but it's just the fact that they're getting a trophy when they lost on the pitch. And they continued. They were also the ones appealing, actually, to be fair. Their federation appealed, and yeah, it's a bit shameless from them. I covered the lineups already easy. So I got 10 correct for both of them, actually. Yeah, I think 10 correct for Bournemouth and Man United. Did a mistake and went for 3 Liverpool players, Van Dijk, Szoboszlai, and Ekitike. Yeah, I think 3 is probably a bit too much, but they could double in 33, and in isolation, they are decent FPL assets. Szoboszlai is even better in UCL Fantasy, though. Could be a Champions League win awarded to Arsenal, who knows? Well, in that case, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Honestly, I want Arsenal to win it on the pitch anyway. Get revenge on Barcelona for all those dodgy wins they got over the past 20 years. And yeah, I think it's about time Arsenal win the Champions League. It's the biggest club by far to have not won it. And I think they will do it eventually. Hopefully, when I can actually see it with my own eyes. Yep, halftime in the World Cup. I'm guessing you mean the halftime, what's it called, shows? Yeah, if you will. MMK says, I totally ended up forgetting about the deadline today. That typically happens on the Friday. Tarkovsky is yellow flagged. He's in my predicted lineup. I can't say for sure if he will, but my gut feeling is yes. It is hopeful for my team, Belgium, that you can also get a trophy even if you lose. Well, good luck. I did like Belgium in the 2018 World Cup. I wanted them to win it. They play some good football there. Dylan is the only streamer who usually brings the chat in the screen. No wonder many people tune in because he usually replies to your chats. Much love, mate. Very kind words, Ian, and it's always good talking to you and everybody else, so thank you for the kind words. Yeah, exactly, the halftime performances. I saw a bit of that in the Copa America, and I was a bit disgusted, to say the least, but every country brings in their own tradition, if you will, and USA have a lot of halftime shows and stuff. You look at NBA and all this stuff, the Super Bowl. So, look, I'm not going to judge them too much, and they are positives about the USA in general, and I've got family there, so let's not go into that all too much, and let me not bait myself up and do all these government names and stuff. It's time to end the stream. Thank you, everyone. If you haven't done so already, like this stream, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and all that good stuff. We are looking to close in on new goals, like 39k on YouTube. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find me by typing FPL Dylan or Dylan RCM. There's links to my Discord, also Patreon, the championships. So type in patreon.com/FPL Dylan. Furlax to my videos. Proud to comments, amongst my other perks. There's also my Spotify. Leave a 5-star review there. And follow me on Spotify. And check out the FPL and FPL challenge links. There are codes in the description. And if you click those auto-join links, you become a part of my mini leagues automatically. The same goes for UCL Fantasy, of course, on those respective podcasts. And speaking of which, there will be more content for the Champions League over the next couple of weeks, especially as we approach the quarterfinal stage. So in April, the Champions League videos will return, and keep your eyes peeled for Gameweek 32 content in FPL. I wish you all the best of luck for Blank Gameweek 31 and the rest of the season. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Lambie. Yeah, going to cheer my own team now. I'm out injured. See you next stream. Well, hopefully you recover soon. I actually thought you were going to say Man United for a second there, but all the best. Hopefully not. I have some Portuguese friends, and I have nothing against Portugal, but yeah, I just can't have that Cristiano Ronaldo GOAT stuff. I'm sorry, but Messi is the better player. Just saying. Palmer, Szoboszlai, Dango, Wilson, Fernandez, bench one, please. Well, I hate to break it to you, mate, but the deadline has passed. I would have benched probably Dango or Tara. It's between him and Szoboszlai. 2 weeks is a bloody hell, a long time for the break. As I told you earlier, Ian, there are other things besides football. I'm sure you'll find something. Watch shows, go out for a walk, meet friends, family, engage in new hobbies. Yeah, there are a lot of different things besides football. I get what you're saying. It's always nice to have that in the background, but watch the international games if you're football obsessed like I am. Football obsessed. I can't even speak right now. Get ready to be selected for a random check app. Yeah, hopefully not. Sleep, rest, watch movies. Yeah, anime, TV shows. There's a lot to do. Thank you very much. Good luck, Dylan. Let's meet at Saturday. Yeah, so I haven't done a reaction stream in a while, but like I said, if people want to see a reaction stream, then show support to the channel, like, subscribe, hype, leave a comment, all that good stuff. A big up to those that watch live and those on the playback. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content, but in the meantime, let's get those green arrows and rise up the mini leagues. Or I should say, let's just win our mini leagues and get those green arrows. Take care.